Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone had a good lunch. So let's start with the preliminary review and analytical review. There are basically two modules which I will be delivering. One is related to analytical reviews at the planning stage and at various stages of the audit. And the second module is about estimate. Estimate is a little lengthy or tricky topic. So that would be done in a later part. Let's start with the preliminary review, analytical reviews. So camera. So let's start with analytical procedures. Okay. Yeah. So can everyone tell me, anyone, what kind of audit procedures, auditing standards tell us to perform? What are the type of procedures we usually perform on our audits? Let's make it a little bit interactive. You know, giving a lecture and everything won't work. So let's make some interactive session. So what kind of audit procedures which auditing standards suggest to us?
Inspection, observation, recalculation.
A little louder if
Like inspection, observation, recalculation, external confirmation.
Okay. Okay. Yasin, can you change? So the procedures which the standards prescribe to us are inquiry, confirmation, inspection, observation, recalculation, reperformance, analytical procedures also. So next. So what are analytical procedures? This is basically a standards definition. I want to hear, what do you understand from the analytical procedures? Anyone has an answer about it? Like, what do you think an analytical procedure performs? What it helps us to assist us in doing? Any idea about that? Yep, please.
सर जो हम फर्स्ट ईयर सेकेंड ईयर के जो हमारे पास फिगर्स होते हैं उनको कंपेयर करते हैं कितना इंक्रीज एंड डिक्रीज आया है एंड अकॉर्डिंगली विद दैट अगर फॉर एग्जांपल सेल्स में इंक्रीज आया विद 50% उसी के हिसाब से कॉस्ट ऑफ सेल्स भी हमारी इस हिसाब से इंक्रीज होनी चाहिए. दैट्स इट्स लाइक द एग्जांपल ऑफ प्लॉजिबल रिलेशनशिप व्हिच वी टेस्ट.
ठीक है, दैट्स गुड. ये तो एग्जांपल हो गई बेसिकली. दिस इज एन एग्जांपल ऑफ वन ऑफ द मेथड वी यूज टू डू an analytical kind of a procedure. What an analytical procedure really is, it's a kind of an evaluation of a financial information, or you can say through an analysis of plausible relationships among both financial and non-financial. Now this is quite of a technical kind of a language they have used in the standard. What it means actually, basically जो आपको समझने की ज़्यादा ज़रूरत है वो ये कि फाइनेंशियल एंड नॉन फाइनेंशियल डेटा को यूज करते हुए जो हमारे पास इंफॉर्मेशन होती है, ठीक है ना, तो हम उससे रिलेटेड कोई रिलेशनशिप डेवलप करते हैं कि दो इंफॉर्मेशन का, और उससे अपना कोई कंक्लूजन या ऑडिट एविडेंस ड्राइव कर रहे होते हैं. सो इट्स अबाउट द प्लॉसिबल रिलेशनशिप. जो इसमें मेन कीवर्ड है हमारा वो है एनालिसिस ऑफ प्लॉसिबल रिलेशनशिप्स. ठीक है ना, कि जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल आप ये देख सकते हैं कि सेल्स है. अब सेल्स और डेटर, इनका एक रिलेशनशिप है कि सेल्स इंक्रीज होंगी तो डेटर भी इंक्रीज होगा. मेरे डेटर एंड डेज का रेशो वुड बी गिविंग मी अ डिफरेंट आंसर. ठीक है ना. इसी तरीके से अगर मेरी परचेजेस हो रही हैं तो क्रेडिट साइकिल पे इफेक्ट आ रहा है तो वो भी इंक्रीज होंगी. तो एक ये रिलेशनशिप है, तो उसका एनालिसिस जो होता है ना, उसको हम कहते हैं कि एनालिटिकल प्रोसीजर हम परफॉर्म कर रहे हैं. चलो मूविंग फॉरवर्ड. ओके, यूजुअली जब एनालिटिकल प्रोसीजर्स हम परफॉर्म करते हैं तो इन एनालिटिकल प्रोसीजर्स के अंदर मेन रोल जिस चीज का होता है वो होता है कि ऑडिटर अपनी एक एक्सपेक्टेशन डेवलप करता है. ठीक है ना. वी डेवलप आवर एक्सपेक्टेशन जो स्टैंडर्ड्स कहते हैं, ठीक है ना। हम प्रैक्टिस में शायद डिफरेंट तरीके से आप लोग देखते आए होंगे, बट ये कि द मेन थिंग जो स्टैंडर्ड जिसकी बात करता है, आइजर्स जिसकी बात करते हैं कि एनालिटिकल प्रोसीजर्स परफॉर्म करने से पहले ऑडिटर अपनी एक्सपेक्टेशंस डेवलप करता है। उन एक्सपेक्टेशन से फिर उसका एक कंपैरिजन होता है विद द एक्चुअल नंबर्स, एंड देन यू आइडेंटिफाई कि वेदर डिफरेंसेस हैं या नहीं है, ठीक है ना। सो इट्स ऑल अबाउट द ऑडिटर्स एक्सपेक्टेशन कि वो ऑडिटर अपनी एक्सपेक्टेशन डेवलप कैसे करता है। फॉर इंस्टेंस जैसे यहाँ पे एक एग्जांपल दी हुई है कि इंटरेस्ट एक्सपेंस को आप एवरेज रेट, बोरर का बैलेंस, एवरेज बोरिंग रेट, इनसे मल्टीप्लाई करेंगे तो आपके पास एक टेंटेटिव या रफ नंबर आ जाएगा। एनालिटिकली आप उसको देख रहे हैं कि यार ठीक है, ये रिलेशनशिप मैच कर रहा है नहीं कर रहा, कि जो हमारा बोरिंग रेट है एवरेज और जो बोरर का आउटस्टैंडिंग एवरेज बैलेंस है, इन दोनों को अगर हम कंबाइन करें तो हमारे पास फिर रिजल्ट उसका आता क्या है, ठीक है ना। तो ये हम एनालिटिकली देख रहे हैं, हम एक एक बोरर का और जाके कैलकुलेशन नहीं चेक कर रहे, रादर देन व्हाट वी डूइंग कि हम एक होलिस्टिक लेवल के ऊपर, एक अकाउंट बैलेंस के लेवल के ऊपर क्लाइंट का ही डेटा यूज करके और उससे हम एक रिलेशनशिप बना रहे हैं सबसे पहले, और फिर हम अपनी एक एक्सप्रेशन डेवलप कर रहे हैं। हम ये डेवलप कर रहे हैं कि भाई अगर मार्केट का इंटरेस्ट रेट जो है वो 15% या 16% पे जा रहा है, ठीक है ना, तो कीपिंग इन व्यू द सेम, अगर हम बोरर का एवरेज बैलेंस लेते हैं और उस पर वो रेट अप्लाई करते हैं तो हमारा रिजल्ट क्या आ रहा है, और क्लाइंट ने जो बुक किया हुआ है अपनी बुक्स में उसका रिजल्ट क्या आ रहा है, क्या कोई डिफरेंस है, मेजर डेविएशन है या नहीं है, ठीक है। तो हम उससे एक कंफर्ट ड्रॉ कर रहे होते हैं, एक लेवल ऑफ अश्योरेंस ड्रॉ कर रहे होते हैं। अब मुख्तलिफ लेवल ऑफ अश्योरेंसेस मौजूद होते हैं, यस देयर आर डिफरेंट लेवल ऑफ अश्योरेंसेस जो आपको ड्राइव करनी होती हैं फ्रॉम एनालिटिकल प्रोसीजर, बट दैट डिपेंड्स ऑन यू कि आप किस स्टेज पे कर रहे हैं एनालिटिकल प्रोसीजर, आप प्लानिंग पे कर रहे हैं, आप रिस्क असेसमेंट की स्टेज के ऊपर कर रहे हैं, आर यू डूइंग दैट ऑन as a source of gathering and substantive audit procedure, are you doing it at a completion stage to look at an overall picture of the financial statement? So it depends. At risk assessment stage पे analytical procedures का बड़ा key role होता है। जैसे before Arslan was presenting and he was more stressing about planning and risk assessment. So analytical procedures do come at that stage also. At that stage, you need to get an understanding of the entity, its business environment and everything. So you need to have to look at the initial numbers or the planning numbers or even last year numbers or interim numbers and have an interim level or a planning level analytics perform to get, not to get any audit evidence, but to identify the risk areas where you need to focus in your audit going forward. So analytical procedures have a key role in performing risk assessment. So it's a key procedure as a risk assessment procedure which we perform. Like I said, analytical procedures can be used as a risk assessment procedure at planning stages. It can be used as an analytical procedure, and it can also be used as a final analytical procedure. We will go in detail of what is meant by final analytical procedure, what is meant by typically there are two kind of analytical procedures we use in Pakistan. Typically we use, although there are a number of other analytical procedures also which are evolving, because you know in today's world data analytics and everything has come in, so the world is changing fast. But however, currently what our practice is, because in our environment where IT is not that robust, you are not able to get the whole data from the clients you are auditing. Obviously, it is putting a sort of a cap on our capabilities to enhance, because we cannot use those data analytical tools here in Pakistan because we don't have availability of data, which is a challenge. But what we are using currently in Pakistan generally, which we see, are the trend analysis and the ratio analysis. So just to ask, what is a trend analysis? Anybody has an idea, a rough idea? Your idea about trend analysis? Anyone? Anyone from the back? Mm-hmm. 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 Okay. And what is the ratio analysis? Ratios which we perform, current ratio, quick ratio. We have all read about it. Okay. Let's get into what is the trend analysis. So trend analysis is the process of comparing the data from one period to one or more comparable periods, including both comparing prior period data and comparing with the projection based on changing pattern in the history of the data. Further, okay, trend analysis may include comparing ratios from one period to another period and evaluate that relationship data, both financial and non-financial data, from one period to another. So as sorry, I didn't got his name. So as he was saying that, yeah, it's a comparison of, period to period, you're comparing that how things are moving, in which direction. It gives you a good direction about that. Okay, industry is moving at a pace of 5% or 10%, but your company is moving at a pace of 20%. So it does give me some idea about what different you are doing. And then this information you can use in your risk assessment procedures also, that there's something company is doing differently, that it is beating the industry averages. So by that, you can identify different trends and initiate your risk assessment inquiries with the management. Okay. Then the ratio analysis and the trend analysis, yeah, is the same example. Ratio. Okay. Okay. The ratio analysis is a process of examination of various ratios. Okay. By comparing them to one or more comparable periods. Like, for example, you have a debtor days ratio in your company, and you see an industry averages, or you're auditing another company which has a different debtor days ratios or inventory turnover ratios. Now you can compare those ratios among the industries, among the other companies, or you can also compare them within the company with their prior periods, the historical data, to get an idea again about, you can gather information about your risk assessment at the planning stage, that is there a problem, is our inventory days are increasing, is there a risk of obsolete inventory, or something is coming out, or debtor days are increasing, so is there a loan loss provision which we need to book, or anything. These things will start coming up, because when you perform these ratios analysis, you are able to identify risk areas within your whole audit, and then you accordingly start planning. That's why I'm saying that performing these analysis at the planning stage help you in identifying and design your audit approach, that what are the areas you need to look at in your audits more focused. Okay. Yeah, it's the same thing that I was just explaining. Okay. Analytical procedures, as I've explained you before, may be used in a form of comparing current periods or with more comparable prior periods, also with company budgets and forecast. Like when you come into the audit, you ask client to provide you the budget, and you look at the forecast and you compare them. You can use the ratios there also. You can compare it with the same other companies within the industry to to have an idea that where this company is going on. Evaluating relationship of one account balance to other with predictable patterns, like increase in production with increase in production overheads. Like your production is increasing, but your production overheads are not increasing. So these analysis can be done using external data, internal data, within account balances, within the financial statement, different numbers you can compare. You can use non-financial data, the production data, to make all these analysis. So analytical procedure in a whole helps you make a business understanding clearer, and do a risk assessment to plan your audits. Unless you perform these analytical procedure at your planning stages, it is difficult for you to, to identify risk areas. Otherwise, you will to plan your audit from other procedures, you're also getting the information, but these will help you to identify all those risk areas more clearly and focused. Your audit would be more focused and you will be concentrating on the areas where actual risk of material misstatement lies. Like the auditing standard does not require us to jump on every kind of risk of misstatement. It asks us to look at the areas which are material and you need to focus on. So the auditing standards are suggesting a risk-based audit approach. So we need to apply these analytical procedures at the start, at the planning and risk assessment stage, to identify those areas and plan our audit approach accordingly. Moving forward. So they are, as I said, that they are analytical procedures are performed at basically at 3 stages. We'll go into the stages later on. The first stage is the planning stage, which includes the risk assessment procedures and to assess risk of material misstatement at the planning stage of account balances level. Like the first stage, planning stage, there are 2 kind of analytical procedure you are performing. First, you are gaining the understanding of the business itself, where the business is moving, which are the risky areas of it. And then the second part of the planning stage, you are identifying risk of material misstatement specific to those account balances level, not at the holistic level that you have done. Now at the specific account balances level, you are like the debtors has a problem, inventory has a problem specific to those account balances, not about where's the business is going in at par with the industry, it is exceeding that, it is going below the par level of the industry. So that's one part, that you are gaining a overall understanding of the business. And the second part at the planning stage is to identify risk of material misstatement at account balances level. Then you can use analytical procedures as actual, what is actual audit evidence gathering exercise, which we usually call substantive analytical procedures. Like in an auditing standard, you can do substantive procedures where you can perform test of details, or you can perform substantive analytical procedures. The only precondition to perform substantive analytical procedure is that it can be done in combination of when you have performed or checked the internal controls. And why is that the reason? We will also discuss that why substantive analytical procedure cannot be performed when there are no test of controls being performed. Then you can also perform them at overall conclusion to get a that financial statements are consistent with the auditor's understanding. They are giving the similar kind of information which you have after the conclusion of audit. You have made your mind frame, or you still think that I have audited everything and I have understanding that this balance should be this much, but this balance, the final balance is showing something different picture. So that can, it can either confirm or negate that. And if it negates, then obviously then you have to perform further procedures. So how it works? So as I said, the most important part of the analytical procedure is to develop your own auditor's own expectation, basically. Like you just cannot make a ratio analysis and say that's it. No, you have to make a ratio analysis, and then you need something to benchmark it. And that benchmark is set by setting up certain expectations. So first, as a first step of analytical procedures, you need to develop your own expectation, that where you want this balance to be, which you are auditing, where you want this balance to be. Like, for example, if the industry is growing the sales for the cement sector, if you're talking about cement sector and you have sufficient data available in the market, you can see from that data, industry data, that, okay, cement sales, north, south, okay, fine, it is increasing by this much ratio. In south, it is increasing by this much ratio in the north region. And now the company's own mix of south and north. and you should be developing. For the first step is to develop and gather that data, the expectation that industry is growing by 5% and 4%. Okay, fine, 5 and 4. So this is the industry data available to you, and you have developed, okay, fine, this company has this pluses, this company has this minuses. They are not as strong in the south region, they are not that strong in the north region. So their performance against the industry expectation may be lower or higher. So that is the expectation stage. That expectation auditor needs to develop, that yes, this company has certain pluses, certain minuses. It has uh, uh, good distribution channels, or it has something different from other companies or other competitive companies. So it can outperform them. So I'm expecting as an auditor that fine, my sales, industry is growing by 5%, my sales would go and increase by 7%. You can also corroborate that by comparing the same information, historical data, that we have always beat the industry by 2%. Industry is always increasing by 5%, 6%, 7%, but we are growing by 7%, 8%, 9%. So we are always beating that. So you have that relationship. You can develop your expectation, set that expectation. That's the first step. You have to analyze the data, collate the data, and then develop your own expectation where you want this company's sales to be at the final account balance level. So that's the first step. You need to develop your own expectation by gathering all these information. The next, precision. So precision is highly important, because if you don't have a precise level of information available, your expectation may be, it may be really, you cannot rely on that information, that because you need to this is not a test of detail, this is a holistic review. You are taking certain informations, okay, making an analysis of those information. So you need to keep that mind, that accuracy is an important factor. You need to have all the information in a precise form. And what does precision? Precision depends on three factors here. So precision is the disaggregation and the plausibility and practicability and data reliability. These are the three areas which changes your precision. So we look at what is disaggregation basically. Next, the next one. Yeah. So disaggregation. So the more detailed level of analysis, or the more detailed level of information you have, your analytical procedure or your expectation development would be more accurate. It will have an effect. Like, as I was giving an example of a cement industry, there are different dynamics in South region companies. There are different dynamics in the North region companies. Okay. And the results are also different. So for example, if you're doing at a combined level, you won't be able to, at a combined level, the sales are increasing, industry sales are increasing by 10%, say. But it is not the case when you disaggregate them. At North, it would be 15%, at South, it would be 5%, but at average you are saying, and your company is particularly good in North region. So when you're comparing with 10 and your company is good at North region, it would be giving you a 15% increase in sales. But at average, you will be comparing with 10%, which is a wrong analysis basically. So it has affected your precision level, that you are not able to, benchmark it with the correct estimate or a correct number which you have developed as an expectation. So disaggregation of data is very important. As much as lower level data you will get, as much as disaggregated data you will get, you are able to perform a better and more precise analytical procedure. If you aggregate them, things get muddled. You won't get a clear picture. It may not, it may give a different result, it may get completely out of picture, different result. So it is important that you have a disaggregated data with you to make an expectation analysis. Then the second one is is predictability and plausibility of the relationship. Like you need to identify the correct relationship. Like sales and data is the correct relationship. If you compare sales with the creditor day cycle, it doesn't make sense. It has to be a correct relationship. If you are identifying different variables which are not relatable to each other, okay, they are not plausible, basically they are not relatable to each other, and you are not accurately identifying the correct relationship, the correlation. Okay, if sales increases, data increases, this is the correct relationship. If I compare the sales increasing with, I'll say, okay, inventory days, so that doesn't make sense, because sales are directly related to the increase in data levels. So you have to identify the correct relationships also here, which are relatable. Otherwise, you will end up in a wrong analysis. So this is the second part within precision, which is important. If you're identifying wrong kind of it, you will get a wrong decision. The third one is the reliability of data. Obviously, the data from where you are gathering, what is the source of that data? Is it procured from independent sources? Like it's an industry data, it is more reliable. If something which is client is giving you, it is less reliable. Obviously, it has pluses and minuses. So what is important in the reliability, that you have to get the source of the data. You have to get maximum data from outside of the organization. As much as data you get from outside, from industry, from elsewhere, that is very good. But if you're making analysis which needs production data and everything, which is an internal data, definitely in those cases, effectiveness of internal control is very important. Because if the controls are not effective, then how can you can use that data? Because the controls are not effective. This means you must have concluded while performing test of controls that controls are not effective in this area. So I cannot use this whole data. Okay, so in order to use that whole data, because in analytical procedure you use total numbers, total sales, total debtors and everything. So you need to have good internal controls, internal control environment to able to rely on that. Otherwise your reliability level will go down. Okay, and then auditors own and that auditors own personal knowledge, like what does the auditor is thinking about it. Okay, and another point is which is mentioned in the last is which I want to stress, like if the data is procured from multiple sources, it would be more reliable. If you're getting data from industry, if you're getting data from a competitor company also which you are auditing, you are able to collate that information and say, okay, this looks like a more refined and better data to use. So that's an important part, that if you're getting multiple source data, it will be more reliable. Okay, from that part, now we move to the next step of the analytical procedure. After you have set your expectation, considering the reliability of data and internal controls and every aggregation, disaggregation, you have set your expectation. This is the first step you have done. Now the second step is to set your tolerance level. Now, what is a tolerance level? Anybody has an idea about what is a tolerable error or tolerance level? Different kind of jargons being used for this. Anyone has an idea about it? What is a tolerance level? No? Yes, anyone? Acceptable difference. Yeah, acceptable difference. This is another jargon we use in analytical procedure. Yeah, it is that level, whether you call it tolerable level, whether you call it acceptable difference, it is that level or that amount or that percentage or anything you have said that if it goes beyond that, okay, this would be a problem for me. It would be an audit issue. I have to do certain audit procedures. If it's within that tolerable level, then you are able to conclude that you are satisfied. Okay, this much is expected. So for example, like I'm using that example again and again, like industry is growing by 10%, say, and my company which I am auditing has this plus and this minuses, and after that I have set my expectation that our growth should be 12%. Okay, this is an estimate, this is a rough idea which you have made. Okay, fine. What I said as an auditor, keeping in with the whole company's structure in mind, the whole business understanding and whole risk assessment in mind, I make a judgment call here. I made a judgment call that, okay, this expectation is there, but if the company's actual numbers vary, say 5% or 10%, it depends whether it's 5% or 10%. It's the matter of your professional judgment. That's what the standard says. It's a matter of your professional judgment, and that professional judgment is based on your whole business understanding. So how to set that 5%, how to set your 10%, how it could be 13%, 20, any percentage. It would depend on what you have analyzed in the whole risk assessment stage. If you have analyzed that, yes, this company has good internal controls, it is a reputable company, it has no history of, frauds or anything like that, I can give them this fair margin. Okay, this can be 5% here and there. Okay, so if I say them industry average is coming at 10%, my result is coming at 12%, I say 20% is the variation, and I have the reason of 20%, so my expectation is 12% is okay. But the result comes in is 15%. Actual result is coming at 15%. Now, this is way above than what margin I was giving it, because I have already built in your plus and minuses in my expectation of 12%. Now it is way above than that. I can give you a 5% margin of that. Okay, if it's 12, it can be 12.5, fine. But why it's 15? It's too high. So there must be a reason. So the next stage would be like comparing the recorded amount with your expectation, and then I think this part we have done. Next. And next would be investigate the difference which is above your tolerable level. 12%, 10% is industry average, plus minus I have set it. Okay, it should be, expectation would be 12%, and I have said I can accept 10% variation. So 12% can be 13.2. Fine, I have accepted that. No issues with that. But if it's 15%, it should ring a bell that yes, no, there's something which either I have missed in my analysis, or something which is not correct. Maybe there's a misstatement in it. So I have to go and investigate and ask clients and further dig down, perform detailed test of details in it to find out that what is making this. Maybe 15% is justified. It may be. If you ask for further details, you may find some one-off deal they struck and they got something different, which is not as usual from the historical data from which you made an analysis. Yeah, this can happen. It's not necessarily that it's above tolerable level, so there is a misstatement. ऐसे जरूरी नहीं है in all cases ऐसे ही हो, ठीक है ना? तो it may be के justified हो, position हो client की कि उसने कोई ऐसी special deal करी थी एक during the year, और वो उसने बताई कि वो बिल्कुल पता चली. और although मैं समझता हूँ कि बहुत कम होना चाहिए, because when you are developing your expectation, ये सारी इंक्वायरीज और ये सब आप कर चुके हैं कि कोई एक्स्ट्रा ऑर्डिनरी डील तो नहीं कर ली आपने जिससे आपका मार्जिन इंप्रूव हो जाएगा, ये हो जाएगा. तो एक्सपेक्टेशन में वैसे सब कुछ बिल्ड होना चाहिए, लेकिन जैसे मैंने कहा ना कि इन एक्सपेक्टेशन प्रिसिशन बड़ा मैटर करता है. इफ योर प्रिसिशन में कोई इंक्वायरी रह गई या कोई इंफॉर्मेशन डेटा रिलायबल नहीं मिल सका या डिसएग्रीगेशन उस तरह से नहीं हो सकी, तो आपको हो सकता है कि इस स्टेज पे जाके डिफरेंसेस अराइज आउट हो रहे हो. और जब डिफरेंसेस अराइज आउट होंगे तो फिर आपको ज्यादा डिटेल टेस्टिंग में जाना पड़ेगा. अगर विद इन एक्सपेक्टेशन आता है रिजल्ट, मैंने 12% एक्सपेक्टेशन की और रिजल्ट आता है 12%, आई डोंट नीड टू डू एनीथिंग फर्दर. सिंपल, बिकॉज मैंने जो एक्सपेक्टेशन की थिंग्स आर विद इन दैट लाइन, तो मेरे जो प्रोसीजर्स थे वो सफिशिएंट है. बट इफ इट गोज बियॉन्ड दैट टॉलरेबल लेवल कि भाई 12% की एक्सपेक्टेशन थी, 10% का मार्जिन भी था, बट 15% आया विच इज वे बियॉन्ड दैट, और फिर मुझे डिटेल में जाके देखना पड़ेगा कि इसके रीजंस क्या हैं एक्चुअल. कहीं कोई या तो मिसस्टेटमेंट है या फिर ये कि देयर इज अ जस्टिफाइड रीजन अवेलेबल व्हिच क्लाइंट कैन प्रोवाइड एंड वी कैन देन corroborate and then vouch those reasons. Okay. So this is about explanation of significant differences. Like quantification involves determining whether the explanation or error can be observed, explain the observed difference, while it may not be possible to quantify the exact amount of difference. Then you need to corroborate, as I said, you need to corroborate that difference, that why that difference has happened. Only inquiry won't be sufficient. If you go to the client say, okay, this happened because of this, our sales have increased this much. So you need to corroborate that. You need to further drill down and get the information that is whatever the client is saying, is it correct or not. It's just not that as you know, that inquiry is not alone is not a sufficient procedure. So just making an inquiries from the client won't be sufficient. You need to corroborate it from further audit procedures and do a verification to substantiate that difference. Okay. Stages. So this is again back to, analytical procedures can be formed at different stages. At planning stage, we can use relationship between sales and cost of sales and compare with the prior period industry averages and everything. Next. I think planning to मैं काफी discuss कर चुका हूँ. आगे चले. So the analytical procedure at evidence gathering, this is the second stage. Like the first stage was planning and everything you have done. Analytical procedure can be formed at different stages, as I told you before. So substantive procedures, as a substantive procedure, we can perform analytical procedure, and the whole process is the same process which I explained you before. Is you need to you need to develop your expectation and then the tolerable level, and then you need to compare it and then further investigate if required. So the procedures can be performed at 3 stages: planning stage, evidence gathering, which is the substantive analytical procedure. Now there's a difference later. Like in a substantive analytical procedure, you are actually, because the ISAs require you to perform substantive procedure, and there are 2 kinds of substantive procedure. One is the test of details, which you perform, where you actually go and vouch and verify that information. The other is substantive analytical procedure. The substantive analytical procedure would be much different from the analytical procedure you perform at the planning stage. Reason being, because here you need to get hardcore evidence to support your conclusion. Otherwise, you won't be able to justify whether you have got the reasonable assurance or not. So here, all those factors, disaggregation of data, reliability of data, and your expectation, your tolerance level needs to be very in detail documented and clearly explained. And you need to evidence that so that it can stand equal to what you do in test of detail. It should give you same level of assurances. So that's why it is important. And that's why, and this is the last, back to Jana. Yeah, the last is the analytical procedure may not be suitable if the client's internal controls are weak. As I said, like you are getting those data and information from client, and the internal controls are not as good as you want. So you cannot do this analytical procedure. Then you should not be doing a substantive analytical procedure. If your controls failed, for example, at sales, you think your controls, there are no controls, or the controls which are there, they have failed. Your conclusion that test of operating effectiveness result is no. You cannot rely on those controls. They are not good controls. So you cannot perform substantive analytical procedure, because you are in substantive analytical procedure, you are depending on client explanations, your client depending on a lot of data which are you are getting from the clients MISs and on all those data, because when the controls are not working, you cannot put your reliance on the data itself. So that's why you need to you have to leave analytical procedure and you have to go to test of details instead, because controls are not effective. So that's why I was saying that internal controls are only are pretty much important for performing substantive analytical procedure. If there are internal controls, there are no internal controls, or internal controls have failed, you cannot perform substantive analytical procedure. Then you go for a test of detail exercise. ये हो गया. reliability of the data and expectation. Okay. ये अगले उसमें जा. Now this is auditor needs to perform analytical procedure at the end of the audit also, and to obtain sufficient evidence to form an overall conclusion, like you have done audit of all the areas and you have developed an understanding about the whole at holistic level about the financial statement. You know the variations, why they are coming in, and now you are looking at a big picture of the whole financial statement and making a final calls. Okay, everything looks fine. I know this increases this increases this. I have tested this, did this, but why this increase is coming? Because your testing results have shown you that it should be consistent with this. I was told that our sales have increased normally as per industry. So that's why we were doing controls not good. We didn't perform substantial analytical, we performed test of details. Okay, test of detail and everything was good. But why this variation is coming? It was not checked during the audit. So at conclusion stage also you do this one final check, perform a simple analytical procedures by comparing the numbers from prior years, current year, budget, forecast, whatever you want. You can compare and arrive at that whether is there some area which you are not aware of it. If you are aware of it, fine, that's good. If there is a variation of 50% and you have tested that during your audits, you know about it, that's okay. Then you don't need to do anything. But if there is a variation which you are not aware of it, here percentage is not that the matter. The matter is whether you are aware of it or not. Have you, during the whole audit cycle, have you checked that variation? Are you aware of it? It's in your knowledge, fine. But if it's not in your knowledge, something different is you're looking at a different picture, which is different from what you were doing the audit, obviously then it will again ring the bell and you will start, asking the client and get further corroborative evidence of why this is happening. Maybe you need to go back and look at your audit testing again. Look at the areas you might have missed, which the client is showing that no, this was there and you didn't look at. So you have to go back and you have to gain the understanding and perform further audit procedures and then come back and look at it. Okay, now this picture is making sense and I have looked at all the major variations and I am comfortable with the audit. So the final conclusion stage analytical procedure gives you that final comfort before you sign off the audit report, that okay, everything is which is appearing, every increase decrease which is appearing, all the ratios, these are consistent with my understanding what I have gained from. That's the whole objective of this analytical procedure. It gives you this sanity check kind of a thing, that fine. Okay, that's pretty much sums up what analytical procedures are. Anything you think that which is important analytical, or you have in your experiences performed and you think that this is not the way we used to do analytical procedure, or you want to share your experiences? Anyone, any question or even anything else? Any question? No question. Okay, so this is pretty much simple. Okay, the second module, then we move to second module. Okay, second module.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah.
How to incorporate your risk level and your tolerance?
Sorry, kidhar hai aap yaar?
How to incorporate your risk level in tolerance, in calculation of tolerance? I mean, this is very hard in practical.
Yeah, that's what I said. Like, setting a tolerance level is a matter of professional judgment. That's what the standard says. But different practices have different. Like some people say that, okay, I can tolerate. It's not a rule. Okay, don't start using it. Discuss with your audit partner or everything. Okay, but what generally we use, like performance materiality, which we set. So we are looking at like, okay, performance materiality is this much amount or this much percentage. So I can tolerate a deviation of about say 5%, which is normally we use it as a performance materiality. So मुख्तलिफ ऑडिट फर्म्स की मुख्तलिफ मेथोडोलॉजीज होती हैं, तो डिफरेंट प्रैक्टिसेस डिफरेंट यूज करती हैं, but standards are silent about it. They don't tell. They say it's a matter of your profession judgment. So what different practices are there that some people are using as an amount, a performance materiality. Performance materiality definitely उतना है जितना आप tolerate कर सकते हैं कि इसको as a tolerable error लेते हैं आप, और उसी को आप यहाँ पे भी use कर सकते हैं. Generally, what I have seen in different practices, मैंने 2-3 practices देखी हैं, तो वो performance materiality को ही use करते हैं as an acceptable difference, कि ये tolerable level है कि 5% तक की variation is acceptable. और some लोग, बाज लोग जो है वो उसको अमाउंट्स पे कर लेते हैं कि इतने मिलियन अमाउंट जो परफॉर्मेंस मटेरियलिटी का हम उसको ले लेते हैं, कुछ उसको लोअर भी कर लेते हैं, बट इट ऑल डिपेंड्स कि आपकी ओवरऑल अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ द एंटिटी क्या है, बिकॉज ओवरऑल अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ द एंटिटी ही परफॉर्मेंस मटेरियलिटी में भी रिफ्लेक्ट कर रही होती है. जब मटेरियलिटी आप सेट करते हैं तो उस वक्त आप ये सारे अपने रिस्क असेसमेंट और ये सारे प्रोसीजर्स भी करके एक अंडरस्टैंडिंग ले रहे होते हैं कि मैं कितने पे परफॉर्मेंस मटेरियल अपनी फिट करूं, और जितने पे आप परफॉर्मेंस मटेरियल तो वो आपका एक टॉलरेबल एरर बन जाता है कि आप ओवरऑल फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट होता है. बट इफ यू थिंक दैट आपका ये अकाउंट बैलेंस लेवल थोड़ा ज्यादा रिस्की है, आप समझते हैं कि ओवरऑल बेसिस के ऊपर कुछ ये थोड़ा शायद ज्यादा रिस्की एरिया होगा, तो आप हो सकता है कि आप कहें कि मैं परफॉर्मेंस मटेरियल का 50% रखता हूँ. बट मैंने कहा ना, ये देयर इज नो फिट फार्मूला फॉर इट. डिफरेंट प्रैक्टिसेस यूज डिफरेंट काइंड ऑफ फॉर्मूलाज. कुछ लोग अकाउंट बैलेंस के साथ उसको लिंक कर लेते हैं, कुछ ओवरऑल में कर लेते हैं, लेकिन जनरली दिस कैन बी अ गुड स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट आई कैन से, कि आप परफॉर्मेंस मटेरियलिटी जो होती है, क्योंकि उससे ज्यादा तो आप एक्सीड वैसे नहीं कर सकते ना ऑडिट के अंदर. इससे ज्यादा एक्सीड करेंगे तो यू विल ईदर क्वालिफाई और डू समथिंग अबाउट योर ऑडिट. सो उससे ज्यादा तो आपको जाना ही नहीं है, तो दैट्स द मैक्सिमम. बट यू कैन put some reduced levels of performance mortality as your tolerable errors and use them, but it depends on your account balance to account balances level. It depends on your risk assessment of overall performance. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, बोले इधर ले आए माइक. नहीं, अगर इफ दे देखें, अगर इंटरनल कंट्रोल्स वीक हैं तो आपका हो जाता है कंट्रोल रिस्क हाई. ओके, अब आपको ये देखना पड़ेगा, अगर कंट्रोल रिस्क आपका हाई हो जाता है, ठीक है ना, और इनहेरेंट रिस्क आपका से हाई नहीं भी है, नॉर्मल है, ठीक है ना, स्टिल आपको जो अपना डिटेक्शन रिस्क है या ऑडिट रिस्क है उसको नीचे लाने के लिए जो है ना अपनी टेस्टिंग बढ़ानी पड़ेगी, और आपको टेस्ट ऑफ डिटेल के ऊपर ही जाना पड़ेगा, बिकॉज ऑडिटिंग स्पेसिफिकली काफी स्पेसिफिक है कि इफ यू आर परफॉर्मिंग अ सब्सटेंटिव एनालिटिकल प्रोसीजर, उसके लिए इंटरनल कंट्रोल्स का सही होना इज अ प्री कंडीशन. अगर इंटरनल कंट्रोल्स इफेक्टिव नहीं है, उस एरिया की बात कर रहा हूँ, जैसे सेल्स का आप ऑडिट कर रहे हैं, और अगर सेल्स, इफ यू सी सेल्स के अंदर इंटरनल कंट्रोल्स तो फेल हो गए, तो यू कैन नॉट रिलाई ऑन द MIS एंड एवरीथिंग, यू हैव टू डू अ डिटेल टेस्टिंग, गो एंड वाउच एवरीथिंग, क्योंकि इंटरनल कंट्रोल्स फेल हो गए. तो अब आप उसका जो वही डेटा लेकर, जिसके ऊपर कंट्रोल कोई काम ही नहीं कर रहा, तो डजंट मेक सेंस कि आप उस डेटा को यूज करें. आपको डिटेल वेरिफिकेशन करनी पड़ेगी, तो आपको टेस्ट ऑफ डिटेल ही परफॉर्म करना पड़ेगा. दैट्स द ओनली ऑप्शन स्टैंडर्ड गिव्स. तो जब भी आपके इंटरनल कंट्रोल फेल होंगे तो आपको टेस्ट ऑफ डिटेल पे जाना पड़ेगा. सब्सटेंटिव एनालिटिकल इज नॉट द वे. जी, हाँ बिल्कुल. अगर आपका कंट्रोल एनवायरनमेंट सही है और इंटरनल कंट्रोल इफेक्टिवली वर्क कर रहे हैं, तो यू डू अ सब्सटेंटिव एनालिटिकल प्रोसीजर. सब्सटेंटिव एनालिटिकल प्रोसीजर जैसे मैंने कहा ना कि डॉक्यूमेंटेशन अच्छी होनी चाहिए, एक्सपेक्टेशन की भी डॉक्यूमेंटेशन होनी चाहिए, आपकी डिफरेंस की भी, टॉलरेबल एरर की भी, ये सब जजमेंट एरिया जो यूज करने पड़ेंगे. प्लानिंग और कंप्लीशन में तो आप होलिस्टिक देख रहे हैं ना, लेकिन सब्सटेंटिव एनालिटिकल में आप डिटेल में देख रहे हैं, तो आपके पास वो सारी डॉक्यूमेंटेशन सब्सटेंटिव एनालिटिकल की होनी चाहिए, एक्सपेक्टेशन की पूरी डॉक्यूमेंटेशन होनी चाहिए. कहना तो आसान है कि एक्सपेक्टेशन बना लेंगे, बट एक्सपेक्टेशन बनाना एक इज अ चैलेंज, और सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट होता है यहाँ पे एनालिटिकल प्रोसीजर, क्योंकि एक्सपेक्टेशन के लिए आपको काफी सोर्स डेटा चाहिए होगा जो कि रिलायबल होना चाहिए. आई हैव सीन पीपल के लोग क्लाइंट के इंटरनल डेटा इधर से लिया उधर से लिया और लेके कुछ बना लेते हैं, बट वो इतना रिलायबल नहीं रहेगा क्लाइंट का डेटा, अनलेस कि उसमें आप एलिमेंट डालें कि आपके इंटरनल बहुत ही रॉबस्ट हैं, अनलेस कि आप उसमें एलिमेंट डालें कि आपने इसमें कुछ डेटा तो क्लाइंट का ही हमने यूज किया है इंटरनली प्रोक्योर, कुछ डेटा हमने बाहर से ही प्रोक्योर किया है, तो वो उसके अंदर रिलायबिलिटी डालेगा, आपकी प्रिसिशन अच्छी होगी. जितनी ज्यादा प्रिसिशन आपकी अच्छी होती जाएगी ना, आपका एनालिटिकल प्रोसीजर, सब्सटेंटिव एनालिटिकल प्रोसीजर उतना ही अच्छा होता जाएगा. तो आप परफॉर्म बिल्कुल कर सकते हैं, आप टेस्ट ऑफ डिटेल अवॉइड कर सकते हैं, प्रोवाइडेड आपके इंटरनल कंट्रोल्स बहुत अच्छे होने चाहिए. और उन एरियाज पे टेस्ट ऑफ डिटेल अवॉइड नहीं कर सकते जिसपे स्टैंडर्ड कहता है कि ये तो सब्सेंटिव ही होगा, जैसे कंफर्मेशन स्टैंडर्ड कहता है तो भेजनी है, इन्वेंट्री काउंट करना है। अब ये टेस्ट ऑफ डिटेल वो है जो स्टैंडर्ड ने बता दी ये तो करना ही करना है, इधर ये ऑप्शन नहीं आपके अवेलेबल है। ऑप्शन सिर्फ वहाँ अवेलेबल है कि जहाँ पे आप ठीक है इंटरनल कंट्रोल अच्छे हैं और स्टैंडर्ड्स कोई टेस्ट ऑफ डिटेल मैंडेट नहीं कर रहा, तो यू कैन डू सब्सेंटिव एनालिटिकल प्रोसीजर। मगर उसकी एक्सपेक्टेशन, टॉलरेबल एरर, प्रिसिशन, ये सब चीजें बहुत अच्छे तरीके से डॉक्यूमेंट करनी पड़ेगी, एज गुड एज जैसे टेस्ट ऑफ डिटेल में करते हैं कि हर चीज देख के क्लाइंट की हम लिख के अपने पास डॉक्यूमेंट कर लेते हैं ना, तो इट हैज टू बी एट द सेम लेवल ऑफ डॉक्यूमेंटेशन। क्योंकि आप होलिस्टिक लेवल पे देख रहे हैं कि बस ऐसी ही हवा में तो नंबर नहीं बना लिए लोगों ने, तो ये इस चीज का बड़ा ख्याल रखनी होगी, बिकॉज व्हेन द रेगुलेटर कम तो कहेगा यार ये आपने इसी के नंबर लेके इसी को प्लस माइनस करके खुद ही बना लिया नंबर, दे वोंट नो एक्सेप्ट दैट, वो नहीं इसको एक्सेप्ट करेंगे, वो कहेंगे ये इतना अच्छा ऑडिट एविडेंस नहीं था। तो उसके लिए आपको काफी अच्छी डॉक्यूमेंटेशन करनी पड़ेगी, एक्सपेक्टेशन की भी, टॉलरेबल एरर की भी, अपनी प्रिसिशंस की भी, कहाँ से डेटा लिया, डेटा की रिलायबिलिटी, ये सब की अच्छी एक डॉक्यूमेंटेशन आपको करनी पड़ेगी, देन यू विल जस्टिफाई। और समटाइम इसी तरह ऐसा होता है कि जब हम इतनी सारी डॉक्यूमेंटेशन कर रहे होते हैं ना, तो हमारे दिमाग में ये सवाल जरूर आएगा कि उससे अच्छा था मैं टेस्ट ऑफ डिटेल कर लेता। दिस हैपेंस इन मतलब हमारी फर्म के अंदर भी ये होता है, दिस हैपेंस दैट कि इतनी ज्यादा रिक्वायरमेंट है सब्सेंटिव एनालिटिकल को जस्टिफाई करके डॉक्यूमेंट करने की, कि इन द एंड स्टाफ स्टार्ट्स टू थिंक कि भाई क्या ये बेहतर नहीं था कि मैं टेस्ट ऑफ डिटेल ही कर लेता, सिंपल जाके वेरिफिकेशन ही करनी थी ना, वो तो ज्यादा इजी वे था। बट कहने का देखिए मकसद ये है कि एनालिटिकल प्रोसीजर ना, क्योंकि आगे जो दौर आ रहा है ना वो है एनालिटिक्स का, डेटा एनालिटिक्स का, तो मतलब टेस्ट ऑफ डिटेल जो है ना वो शायद आगे जाके खत्म हो जाएगा। आपको तो शायद पूरा पूरा डेटा कहा जाएगा, पूरा डेटा 100% डेटा लें, क्योंकि एनालिटिकल प्रोसीजर आपका इफेक्टिवली हमने पूरा डेटा ले लिया ना उसका, और उससे फिर एनालिसिस कर रहे हैं, तो इट शुड बी गिविंग यू मोर अश्योरेंस। तो रेगुलेटर्स वर्ल्ड वाइड यही डिमांड कर रहे हैं कि एनालिटिकल प्रोसीजर क्यों नहीं परफॉर्म कर रहे आप लोग, डेटा एनालिटिक्स क्यों नहीं परफॉर्म कर रहे, क्यों क्यों मुख्तलिफ चीजें जो दुनिया में हो रही हैं उनको क्यों नहीं परफॉर्म कर रहे आप। और उसका रीजन ये है कि हम समझते हैं कि इजी ये है यार टेस्ट ऑफ डिटेल कर लो, इट्स इजी वे आउट, सिंपल, कोई एक्सपेक्टेशन और ये सब डेवलप नहीं करनी, लेकिन दुनिया बड़ी तेजी से मूव कर रही है, ठीक है ना। तो आपको हो सकता है कि बाद में आगे जाके यही एक सोर्स ऑफ डेटा हो कि भाई पूरा डेटा डंप लें क्लाइंट से और उसको पूरा एनालिसिस करें और सारी चीजें, क्योंकि उसमें 100% वेरिफिकेशन हो जाती है, you get the 100% result of what you're looking at, your auditing, so that definitely gives you a more assurance rather than कि आप limited वो करें, ठीक है। So any further questions? Yes, इधर। No, it depends on what, like if you're doing a sales specific area audit, definitely you need a whole data of sales. Unless you're looking at a specific element of your sales data, then you have to take specific data element for that area.
I was head of IT of one of a big company, and the auditor asked me to give me the copy of the database.
The whole database.
The whole database.
Look,
so is it justified?
I don't know what his objective was, because there are different things with the different objectives. For example, I'll tell you, there's one thing which we call JE testing, journal entry testing. Now this journal entry testing requires you to take the whole data down. And why it is that? Because management override of control is an inherent risk available in all the financial statements. Management override of control, this is an inherent risk and you need to address, and the only way to address is to take the whole data dump and run some routines over it, identify high risk journal entries, and then vouch them or verify them or get reasons of why these entries occurring. So that's a different thing. That's not for substantive analytical or data analysis. That's for with the objective of checking that whether management has overridden any control, is there any high risk journal entry appearing. So the objective is quite different. They are not doing an analysis of as such that data. They are taking that data because they need to ensure the completeness of all the entries and then identify from that whole data that we have looked at any kind of top side entry, be it 13 entry, different kind of entry. So I have a complete picture of it. That's why they were asking you. That's why they were asking. I don't know what they are.
As you said that it may be possible that in future test of details would be totally eliminated. And
Not
big
in the
data-
future, it is. In some part of the country,
That's what
of
I'm-
the
that's
world,
what-
it
that's
is
what I-
already.
That's what I want to ask
Yeah,
basically.
it is already.
That big data analytics will perform the role.
Yeah.
So what, as you are saying now, that in some areas,
Mhm.
people are doing like that. What is international approach? They are more trusting that big data analytics or test of details?
No, no, big data analytics.
Big
It
data
is very
analytics.
clear. There is no doubt. We
Okay.
are lagging behind Pakistan or some other countries you may be looking at, because there are reasons for that, but why
So
we are
there,
lacking
there
about
may
it.
be different approaches for big data analytics. Like for example, when you do data
There are bots
analytics,
available.
data analytics, you can use Python language and some other sources and some
Yeah,
other
yeah.
ways to do this.
Yeah, yeah,
So
definitely.
auditors should equip with that kind of languages or what?
Definitely, there are data analytics tools which use all these languages, which use all these kind of techniques. There are AI level of data analytics tool available. You just put your data in it and they do multiple kind of analysis, and they will highlight you, this is the problem, this is not doing correct, this is something issue which you need to look at. So their AI is also working along with it, and they're identifying all these trends and everything, even factual inaccuracies and the problems. So that is in the work. They're even as I know, I work in KPMG. So in KPMG Australia, they have developed bots. They have developed bots which are performing certain procedures on behalf of us. So we are not needed. So they are going at the client. They have put those bots in their computers. They just put in data, and that bot is doing everything. That bot is analyzing the data, preparing the work paper, filling up everything, documenting, and send it to the manager or the partner. Okay, look, this is the conclusion, this is what I have done. So the bots are there, already there. It's we in Pakistan, we are lacking, but they are already there. So fast changing. We are still not at the substantive analytical procedure. We are struggling to do substantive analytical procedure even, which is a manual exercise. And people have moved to data analytics and everything. So the future is data analytics. Whether we like it or not, we have to move, because data is everything now. Everyone is harnessing data. Problem is with our local environment also. Most of the companies are not as IT equipped as we think. Most of the company, people are running it. People even don't know how to get the data. Even the users don't know how to get the data. Most of the time, these auditors would get an answer, we don't have this data.
I think one of the problem is that
Yeah.
I have seen that only, I think big four or maybe top 10 companies in audit,
Mhm.
they are using audit softwares.
Yeah.
But most of the companies are not able to do that because one of the major reason is the price of the audit software,
Mhm.
which is about 5 million or 10 million.
Mhm.
So I think if, as you were saying that there are boards doing artificial intelligence things and doing most of the things on behalf of us.
Mhm.
So I think there should be a software which every small firm can easily buy and use it, so that the culture would be developed.
Yeah, I think smaller firms along with the institute also, I think they can collaborate and join hands and to find out these audit softwares, because audit software, this is the first step. First you get acquainted with the audit software, the documentation and everything, and the second step is, okay, find the data analytics tools, because those tools are also separately from the audit software. We are using those tools, they are separately available, and that's a cost also. If we want to use, we pay our network firm this much amount for that, using that tool. So that's a cost involved in it. So obviously that cost needs to be recovered. We do pay them whenever we use those tools, wherever we get the data, we use those tools and we get that. So cost definitely is there, but yes, smaller firms may have to collaborate, maybe either through ICAP or through their own forums, and to get into this, because this is the future. Sooner or later, the once the companies are equipped with the IT systems, they would be expecting, because it changes everything. It changes the whole dynamic. It quickens your audit, it performs things more diligently, you're able to identify and complete things. Resources are skilled, our resources are also filled, then it would be in much demand, because the world is have moved towards it, and we haven't. Then what is the demand for our professional outside? Nothing, because they will say that you don't know anything about these AI technologies which are coming in. So these are pretty important. Yeah, that question. Sorry, आवाज नहीं आ रही ये जरा मुझे बिल्कुल भी आवाज टाइम हो गया अच्छा हो गया
Zeeshan, I would like to add here
Yeah.
regarding the question from my colleague here.
Yeah, yes.
There are three softwares, there are three audit softwares available,
Mhm.
which are not that expensive. They would be costing you around 2 lakh rupees a year, which is 15,000 rupees per month. The name of the softwares are Caseware. The number one is the CCH, and the third one is the Inflow. So kindly note down these three softwares for the small medium enterprises. And these are also web-based, so you
Okay.
can use it on the client
Really,
software,
sir.
client premises as well. And ICAP SMP committee is also working on these softwares. They were trying to negotiate the price, but since the number of the participants who were interested to buy through the ICAP were not that much, so the deals could not be matured. So the
सर आपके
SMP
लिए प्लीज नोट डाउन कर लें आप नहीं डेफिनेटली हाँ नहीं ये रिकमेंडेशन डेफिनेटली है एसएमपी को हम फॉरवर्ड कर देंगे आईकेप की कमेटी को लेट्स
And
सी
moving forward, I appreciate the Big Four's people are here to guide the SMP people.
नहीं we are
So,
always
as you have highlighted the need of the data analytics and the
definitely
bot being used by the Australia KPMG.
yeah.
So, if there is a platform could be created here and that could be forwarded to the
Sure,
SMP
sure,
committee.
sure.
They are also meeting today at 4 o'clock. So, I would also like to add here
Sure.
that the people should, the ICAP should work on the data analysis techniques. So, the level of the audit in this country can improve with the help of the Big Four associates.
Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, now let's I think further questions अभी देख लेते हैं क्योंकि I think more Zoom पे जो questions आए थे I think वो हमने address कर दिए already. Let's move to the next topic area, which is the accounting estimate. Okay, now accounting estimate is one area which at it's one of the area which is evolving very fast, and it has a very high expectation of the regulators involved. The way the managements do their estimations and how the auditors are coming in and playing their part in verification of these estimates is becoming challenging day by day. Auditors have been questioned multiple times worldwide at different forums like FRC, USSC, PCOAB. All of these are questioning the way auditor is auditing the accounting estimate. So that basically was the preamble of the new standard which came in on audit estimate. Another auditing standard ISA 315 on the fair values, that is also an estimate fair value. So those are coming in and they are enhancing the requirements of how we audit an estimate. So it's a very huge and a large topic to to address. You can take the whole day also, but with the limited time, like I'll try to give you a brief overview about the audit approach which generally we should be looking at, and we should be approaching an audit estimate accordingly. So moving agenda, let's move to introduction. Okay, now so the auditing standard ISA 540, and there's another standard ISA 315 on the fair values also. The both are related to the estimates, and it became applicable in 15th December 2019, and after that a number of requirements sprung up. A lot of requirements came in because as this standard was very demanding, it was demanding a lot of documentation and a lot of additional procedures which an auditor was required to do. So auditing an estimate was never as it was before after this standard. More and more focus was moved toward auditors' use of professional skepticism. They asked that auditors are not as questioning as they should be about estimate. they are not challenging the management's assumptions and judgments being used as they should be. So all those requirements were built into a new auditing standard, and they have enhanced the requirements. They made certain areas explicitly mandatory for the auditor to perform, rather than leaving it at the auditor to decide their approaches. So what is an accounting estimate? Accounting estimate is just simply it's a kind of a transaction or an account balance which goes through this estimation uncertainty, subjective assumptions, judgments, and then you arrive at that number. So an accounting estimate is a kind of a decision or an account balance or disclosure transaction event which generally involves subjective assumption and estimation uncertainty, and management makes them when monetary amount cannot directly be observed. The accounting estimate includes fair value by itself. As I said, like ISA 315 is another standard, which is a fair value standard, and it also falls under estimates. Next, Jana. These are the examples we generally encounter as estimates, like fair value estimates on the investments valuations, recoverability, impairments, goodwill, loss, credit loss allowances, expected credit loss, which we see, pension obligations, retirement benefit obligations, all these are estimates for us. So now, estimates are inherently subject to estimation uncertainty, complexity, and the subjectivity. And these three inherent risk factors, what I can say, these three factors basically increases the management bias in the preparation of their financial statement. And it is very key to understand that these three are very vital in putting in that management bias is already there in the whole financial statement, because when management is preparing the financial statement or recording the transaction, everything, it is inherent that management has a bias towards their transaction. No one wants to their things to look bad. Sometimes they made mistakes intentionally, sometimes they made things intentionally. So management bias risk is there everywhere. But however, when we come to estimate, it increases to its highest level. Why? Because of these three factors: that estimation uncertainty, complexity, and subjectivity. Because these things let the management or gives certain degree of control in the hands of the management to change the number or manipulate that number, maybe fraudulently, maybe intentionally, maybe unintentionally, but it becomes prone to those errors and frauds because of that management bias involved. So next. So what is estimation uncertainty? So estimation uncertainty arises when there are constraints on availability of the data. You're not able to get the information to put a number on a transaction directly or an account balance directly, because the data is not directly available, easily available. So the first thing is about the estimation uncertainty, that you're not getting that number directly. The second is the method or the model or the way you are reaching out to estimate that number, the complexity of the model itself. The third is the subjectivity. So whether there is an involvement of a model or not, it reflects the level of judgment and assumptions a management is using. So these three things combined increases your risk of management bias. Management bias. So management bias, what is management bias? Management bias is a lack of neutrality by management in preparing their accounting estimates. It can be intentional and unintentional. And we evaluate management bias because it could result in a misstatement of financial statement, either individually or in aggregate in various accounts throughout the financial statement. Next, Piyana. Next. So, there's no single procedure available to address management bias. Management bias is there in the whole financial statement. But as I said, it increases the level of the risk in the estimate because it gives out certain things within the hand of the management. So if the management bias risk increases in estimate to its highest level. Is the next one? So what is the approach of auditing an estimate? The first is to identify the elements of estimate. What are the different elements within the estimation? Then assess your risk of material misstatement. That in this estimate, is there a risk of material misstatement? Is there a significant risk? Is there a fraud risk? Anything. So you need to identify that. Then determine appropriate response for each element and document these decisions. Very important thing, like determine appropriate response for each element. Then execute your approach and develop an expectation of your estimate, and then look at the subsequent events to give an assurance. So this is a holistic review. Let's move to a detail of it next. Pura kar do. Pura. Okay, now. So there are two approaches of auditing an estimate. One approach is either you develop your own expectation of an estimate and develop your own estimate, which we call point estimate. Okay, and you use your own data and you use your own expert and whosoever you want to use and arrive at a number. You make that estimation by yourself. That is called point estimate. The other method is that you obtain management estimation. You obtain how the management understanding of how the management has arrived at this estimate, and you go and audit that. And that is generally the procedure which we see, that management at first instance and our audit clients make that estimation, and then we go and ask for audit that estimation. So test and evaluate the entity's method. Is the method model used by the entity is appropriate? Is the method consistent with the framework? Are the adjustment made to the output or not? Are calculation made? So these are all audit procedures which we need to do in auditing an accounting estimate. Evaluate the reasonableness of assumption. So the method is done, then assumptions comes in. So you'll have to look at, is the assumptions are reasonable? Is the assumptions are consistent with the information, with the other information you are getting? If relevant, does the management have intent and ability to carry out a particular course of action on assumption? Test and evaluate the data. Data comes everywhere. So test and evaluate the data. Is the data appropriate? Is it relevant? Is it reliable? All those things which we discussed in the previous module, like analytical, like data needs to be relevant and reliable to arrive at a reliable estimate. So a point estimate or range that uses some of all of your own methods, assumptions, as I said, and can use the same model, like whatever the model management has created to arrive at another, you can use the same model, but you source in the data by yourself. You can develop a point estimate range and then the requirement of the framework. Document the basis of your own independent method and assumption if you're doing it on your own. And if you're looking at the entities, then evaluate the entities, method, assumptions, and data. Third party is basically when the entity is using some other expert, an external expert is being used, then there are additional requirements of the ISA that you need to evaluate their independence and their competence and everything. And then you need to look at that how he is using those data, how data is reliable, what assumptions he is using, and are these are reliable or not. So the main part of the estimation is that there are two ways of doing it. Either you do it by yourself and compare it with the client's estimation. You don't need to test whatever the client is doing, but for that you need to have to source data and information from your own sources, not the client's data to be used. Okay, you can use the model basically, but not the data and everything. You need to put in the data the way it is by yourself. That's the point estimate. And the other way is that management has done a working, management has developed a model, they have put in the data and everything. Now they give it to you. Now in this one, okay, you need to check the model. Model has to be checked in the first one also, and this one also. You need to check the model first, then you need to check the assumptions also. In the first one, you don't need to check the assumption because you yourself is putting it. Here you need to check the assumptions also, challenge those assumptions, go to the client and challenge why this assumptions, from where you have, for example, discount rate. For example, I'm taking this discount rate. So why a discount rate? Why a 15% discount rate is being used? Why your WACC can be different, weighted average cost of capital? Why you're using this? How you have developed this weighted average cost of capital? I don't know what beta you have used, why this has been used, this has been used. You have to question everything. That's what the auditing standard has enhanced. That earlier what we used to, we look to take that data and perform our procedures. Calculation, multiply, plus, divide, that's it. Discounting done, okay, fine. But this is not required now. This is still required, but more is required now. Now you have to challenge each and every, as I say, each and every element which is involved in that estimation process. How you're taking that beta, how you're taking a risk-free rate, from where you have taken this risk-free rate, why this basis is being used for risk-free rate, why you using this for cost of capital, why you using this for cost of equity. So everything needs to be questioned and then everything needs to be documented. This is what the new standard has required. So our responsibility as auditor has increased. Like we just don't take that model and file it in our file or do a recalculation. No, only recalculation, reperformance is not sufficient. That's what the new standard is saying. New standard is saying, no, you do recalculation, reperformance. This is one part. This is only satisfying your accuracy assertion. It is not satisfying your other assertions. So in order to satisfy your completeness and existence and other assertions, you need to challenge the client of the assumptions they have used, how they are using those assumptions. And then you have to test the data which they are putting in the model. What data they have? How many of you have tested the data which client has sent to their actuary to get the present obligation? Have we tested that data? Whatever data he is sending to the actuary, and actuary is giving us a report and we are filing it in our auditor working papers. That's it. That's what you're doing right now. But that's not the right approach. You need to look at the data which is being sent to that actuary. You have to test that data, whether that data is complete, accurate, it is as per the understanding, it is the same data which was giving in the HR process to you, or is it different? People are appearing different here and different there. You need to look at that data. You need to verify that data. So you need to verify that the data which is being put in by the model, and then you have to look at that how that actuary is making that estimation, what model, what method he is using. Okay, fine, that model, that method, actuary is an independent. I cannot recreate that model, fine, but I can appoint another actuary to work for me. I'm not a financial kind of an expert good with the actuarial skill set, so I can get that skill set. I can ask or procure an actuarial service from an actuary and provide him the same data which the client which I have tested, and ask him to reperform using the same model which their actuary is using, reperform that and give me the results, whether the results which are coming in are reasonable or not. Same thing applies to other estimates also. Like for example, impairment testing. Like impairment testing, they are doing what they are doing. They're just doing it free cash flows and then discounting it, getting net present value. This we can do. our own self. We don't need an expert for that. But what we do, whatever information they give, we just do a recalculation. We just do discounting ourselves and see, okay, everything. But how the data is being used, how the projection has been made, what assumptions they have checked, those all, each and, as I said earlier, that each and every element needs to be audited. Each and every element needs to be challenged, especially the assumption part, and the data you need to verify it. So what has the requirements have which have been enhanced is the data. We are not testing those data. Mostly we are relying whatever data client has, and we have to test them. We have to apply our procedures on those data to get reliance over it. And then the models, we need to check whether the model is reasonable or not. We need to check the assumptions being used in it, whether these assumptions are reasonable or not. If we think that we don't have an expertise of verifying those assumptions, or the model is so complicated that we cannot, for example, there's a ECL model which we don't understand. So, okay, fine, but we need to ask client that, okay, we have to get an auditor's expert for it to do that work, because we are not expert of that area. Same as goes for the actuary. We have to go to an actuarial expert. We have to onboard an actuarial expert to reperform whatever client's actuary has done, and then get an assurance over it that yes, fine, that this looks fine now. My actuary and his actuary both are on the same page, both are giving the same result. If there's a difference, there's a difference. Then if there is a difference, then the difference needs to be identified. Either it needs to be adjusted, or whether it needs to be reasoned, or why it is. So what the thing is lacking, that we are not challenging the client on the use of their assumptions, their methods, their models. We need to challenge them in the use of method, assumptions, and model, and each and every data element needs to be tested. We cannot leave them to just give us a data and we say, okay, everything is okay. No, that data needs to be tested. Whatever they are giving to the actuary, this is the most common example. Whatever they are giving to the actuary, they need to give us to us also. We need to test that data, whether that data is correct or not, that data is complete or not. Otherwise, there will be misstatements and we won't know. So that's what the new standards requirements, what they are asking, that auditor needs to be more vigilant, more skeptic, should have a challenging mind, ask each question about each and every relevant data element being used within the estimation process. So documentation, obviously documentation requirement is there in everywhere. So this much pretty much ends the estimation. Any questions? Zoom पे है, पहले उनके देख लें. Zoom पे. If there are any questions to the estimate which you need to ask or understand, or any example you think the way you are auditing an estimate, you can share that also, and we can look at it. Okay, if there's a change is needed in that approach, or maybe you're clear. Okay, fine. When we go back and auditing our clients and ask the information about the estimate, these are the basic areas which we need to focus on. These are the areas, okay, we need to challenge the client for everything. And if you go to the client at this stage, at the planning stage, and let them know your expectation now, it would be more better. Otherwise, if you go in the last day and ask them, no, I want to challenge this from where last day you didn't ask, but this year I'm asking, you have to tell them now. So you need to change your approach, how you are auditing your estimates. So any questions or any experiences you want to share? Yeah.
Sir, as you said before कि हम data analytics use कर रहे हैं substantive testing के अंदर.
जी.
तो क्या जी accounting estimates को जो test किया जाता है उसके अंदर data analytics use हो सकता है?
देखिए data analytics जो use होता है ना, वो तो basically to get an audit evidence about a certain relationship. ठीक है ना, तो हम तो यहाँ पे रिलेशनशिप के लिए कर रहे हैं. आप ये क्या जरूर कह सकते हैं कि मुख्तलिफ टूल्स अवेलेबल हैं जो कि एस्टिमेशंस करके दे सकते हैं. वो डेटा एनालिटिक्स टूल नहीं है, दे आर डिफरेंट टूल्स. जैसे एक्चुअली की जो सिंपलिस्टिक मॉडल्स होते हैं, तो उनके भी टूल्स आते हैं बने, एंड यू नीड टू पुट इन योर डेटा एंड दे विल गिव यू अ रीजनेबल टेस्ट. बट उसके अंदर भी रिक्वायरमेंट ये होती है कि वो जो सॉफ्टवेयर आप प्रोक्योर कर रहे हैं, दैट सॉफ्टवेयर क्या methodology यूज कर रहा है, that needs to be tested and documented in your file, that whether that tool which is arriving at this estimate is doing it correctly or not. आप कोई भी टूल लेके और नहीं यूज कर सकते. That tool needs to be authenticated either by the technical side of the firm or whatsoever. That needs to be tested and documented in your file कि ये टूल यूज करें तो ये टूल क्यों यूज कर रहे हैं, और ये टूल रिलायबल है कि ये टूल के अंदर मॉडल सब सही है. You need to get it tested also, authenticated, फिर आप वो यूज कर सकते हैं. और डेटा एनालिटिक्स के टूल जो होते हैं ना, वो एविडेंस गैदरिंग के लिए होते हैं. वो कोई एस्टिमेशन आपको करके दे सकते हैं मुख्तलिफ टूल्स, ठीक है ना, टू हेल्प यू आउट, बट वो एनालिटिकल नहीं होगा. वो एस्टिमेशन में तो होल डेटा यूज हो रहा होता है पूरा का पूरा, और पूरा टू अराइव एट एक नंबर कि ये एक एस्टिमेशन. सर्टेन केसेस में हो भी सकता है कि भाई वो आपको पूरी रीवर्किंग करके देंगे ना, आप तो यहाँ रीवर्किंग कर रहे हैं. एनालिटिक्स के अंदर क्या होता है कि यू यूज योर रिलेशनशिप्स, जो हमने कहा था ना कि प्लॉसिबिलिटी ऑफ रिलेशनशिप, तो वहां पे तो रिलेशनशिप्स का इस्तेमाल है. देयर वी यूज रिलेशनशिप्स टू अराइव एट अ कंक्लूजन. एस्टिमेशन में रिलेशनशिप्स नहीं है, रिलेशन में पूरा डेटा है, मेथड्स एंड अजम्पशंस है जो कि क्लियरली प्रोक्योर नहीं हो सकती, इजीली डायरेक्टली अवेलेबल नहीं है, और उसको लेके वो एक एस्टिमेशन करता है. तो दोनों में थोड़ा फर्क है.
थैंक यू.
जी हाँ, देखिए मैनेजमेंट तो बायस है. आपके काम पे कोई भी मसला निकालेगा तो यू शुड बी बायस ऑलवेज, कि मेरे काम पे क्यों कोई मसला निकालेगा. बाज दफा अनइंटेंशनल भी होता है. बाज दफा ये होता है कि यू आर डूइंग सर्टेन थिंग्स इन अ सर्टेन वे फॉर अ लॉन्ग टाइम. आपकी उस प्रोसेस से और उस तरीकेकार से, जैसे क्या है ना कि आपकी बहुत ज़्यादा फेमिलियरिटी हो गई होती है, तो आप कहते हैं यार तो मैं तो बचपन से ऐसे ही करता आया हूँ. तो अब ये इसमें कोई फ्रॉड की इंटेंशन नहीं है और इंटेंशनल भी नहीं है, ये शायद अनइंटेंशनल कर रहा है वो, मगर मैनेजमेंट बायस है कि मैं तो ऐसे ही करता आया हूँ यार, इसको क्या पता ये ऑडिटर है. तो इस तरह का माइंडसेट हो जाता है. बाज दफा ऐसा भी होता है. तो इसलिए कहते हैं मैनेजमेंट बायस जो है ना, वो जो कोई भी शख्स अपना प्रोसेस परफॉर्म कर रहा होता है ना, ये इनहेरेंट रिस्क है कि उसका अपना बायस उसके अंदर होता है, और वो ये समझ रहा होता है हमेशा कि मैंने बिल्कुल सही किया है. हो सकता है वो सही भी किया उसने, मगर वो ये रिस्क है. जरूरी नहीं कि हर दफा मैनेजमेंट बायस हो. रिस्क ऑफ मैनेजमेंट बायस होता है कि रिस्क जरूर है, हो सकता है ना हो वो बायस, जरूरी नहीं है, मगर हमें ऑडिटिंग स्टैंडर्ड ये कहता है कि रिस्क ऑफ मैनेजमेंट बायस हमेशा ही होता है. जैसे रिस्क ऑफ मैनेजमेंट ओवरराइड ऑफ कंट्रोल होता है ना, जैसे मैनेजमेंट बायस हमेशा होता है, क्योंकि ये एक ह्यूमन नेचर है ना कि मैं जो काम कर रहा हूँ तो मैंने तो सही किया होगा, या मैं गलत काम कर रहा हूँ, ये सोच के तो कोई भी नहीं करता, मतलब मैं तो सही काम कर रहा हूँ. तो ये एक अनइंटेंशनल है, लेकिन वो आ रहा होगा. या मैं एक तरीके से काम करता आया हूँ आज तक तो किसी ने क्वेश्चन ही नहीं किया, अब ये अनइंटेंशनली बिल्ट हो गया. तो इसी चीज को एड्रेस करने के लिए कहते हैं कि, और जब एस्टिमेट में आके क्यों इनहेंस हो जाता है, क्योंकि एस्टिमेट के अंदर बहुत ज्यादा सब्जेक्टिविटी इन्वॉल्व है और मैनेजमेंट की अपनी जजमेंट्स इन्वॉल्व है. तो जब जजमेंट लगती है और कोई चीज का मैं एस्टिमेट कर रहा हूँ, उसमें अपने जजमेंट लगा रहा हूँ, तो मैं तो ये समझता हूँ ना मैंने सही किया है, तो वो पर्सनल बायस आ जाता है, मैनेजमेंट का बायस आ जाता है उसके अंदर. तो इसलिए कहा जाता है कि इसके अंदर से ये चीज को, क्योंकि बाकी नॉर्मल सेल्स हो रही है, सेल्स को आप रिकॉर्ड कर लेते हैं, दैट्स इजी, वो तो सामने सामने डेटा है, उसमें तो कोई कुछ नहीं बायस आ सकता ना, वो तो सीधी सीधी सी चीज है. लेकिन ये क्या भाई एस्टिमेशन हो कि मैंने इसको इस तरीके से किया, इसको ऐसे मैंने लिया, इस तरह से लिया, तो उसमें एक पर्सनल बनने का बायस आ जाता है. तो इसलिए वो कहते हैं कि यू नीड टू चैलेंज दैट, यू नीड टू गो टू द क्लाइंट एंड आस्क देम, नहीं ये आया तो कैसे आया, ऑल्सो एक्सप्लेन, मुझे भी बताओ, मैं भी समझूं कि हाँ ये कैसे आया, किस प्रोसेस से, व्हाट इज योर थॉट प्रोसेस, ये सारा समझने को कह रहा है स्टैंडर्ड, जो हम पहले शायद नहीं करते होंगे. बट स्टैंडर्ड हैज चेंज, नाउ दे आर आस्किंग कि आप ये मैनेजमेंट बायस को एड्रेस करना बहुत जरूरी है, बिकॉज दे हैव एक्सपीरियंस दैट ओवर द पीरियड कि मैनेजमेंट बायस होता है बहुत सारी एस्टिमेशंस के अंदर, क्योंकि मैनेजमेंट अपने नंबर को हमेशा डिफेंड कर रहे होते हैं, या फिर बाज दफ़ा ये भी होता है इंटेंशनल होता है, मुझे एक सर्टेन नंबर की प्रोविजनिंग दिखानी है और मैं इससे ज़्यादा नहीं दिखा सकता, तो ये फ्रॉडलेंट रिपोर्टिंग होगी, मगर वो इंटेंशनल है तो फ्रॉड की तरफ भी जा सकती है बात, ये भी हो सकता है. लेकिन बहुत सारी दफ़ा ये अनइंटेंशनल होता है, मैनेजमेंट इंटेंट नहीं कर रही होती कि मैं कोई बायस है, बट वो बायस आ गया होता है. ये तो आपको मिलते हैं ना सुनने में, ये तो मैं हमेशा ऐसे ही करता आया हूँ. तो ये दिस इज द कॉमन एग्जांपल, क्लाइंट ये कह रहा होता है दिस इज द मैनेजमेंट बायस, ये बायस है, क्योंकि वो एक तरीके से यूज टू हो गया है करने में, और वो उसको चैलेंजिंग माइंडसेट है, तो आपको चैलेंज करने को कहा जा रहा है, यू नीड टू गो एंड चैलेंज हिम. नहीं कैसे, मुझे भी समझाओ. You need to ask him कि भाई ये कैसे 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 ले रहे हो, कहाँ से प्रोक्योर कर रहे हो, from where you're getting it. तो यही चीज को वो चेंज करने होगा है कि ऑडिटर जाके पूछे उससे, क्योंकि वो तो उसका अनइंटेंशनली शायद उसने प्रोसेस के अंदर वो काफी टाइम से कर रहा है और उसको कभी किसी ने चैलेंज नहीं किया तो वो यूज्ड टू हो गया, तो वो फिर मिस हो जाएगी उससे चीज, और उसमें फिर रिस्क बढ़ जाएगा आपका कोई मटेरियल मिस स्टेटमेंट का। जरूरी नहीं मैं कह रहा हूँ कि मैनेजमेंट हमेशा इंटेंशनली करेगी, मगर यहाँ पे क्योंकि ज्यादा मैनेजमेंट इन्वॉल्वमेंट होती है, जजमेंट उसकी इन्वॉल्व होती है, तो ज्यादा उसका इस्तेमाल होता है। बाकी जगहों पे प्रोसेस बेस्ड चीजें होती हैं तो उसमें इंटरवेंशन कम होती है, इसमें प्रोसेस कम है, ह्यूमन इन्वॉल्वमेंट ज्यादा है, तो उसका पर्सनल बायस आ सकता है। तो जब वो आ जाएगा तो इसलिए इसका आपको कहा जा रहा है ज्यादा चैलेंज करें उसको, हर उस चीज पे चैलेंज करें, उसके हर डेटा एलिमेंट को चैलेंज करें आप, ठीक है ना। और
Sir, what if actual results are still different than the management expectation? So how can we change our procedures for the next year? Because
नहीं, मैं सॉरी अब शुरू का मैं मिस कर गया।
so let's say actual result is different from the management estimate which they have made for the last year.
हाँ.
So how for the next year we have to change our audit approach? Even management are giving us the justification that there is no event which is outside of the ordinary course of business. Then how we should change our audit procedures, because it's clear that we're not able to.
नहीं देखें, जब आपका डिफरेंस आएगा क्लाइंट के साथ, whenever your difference will come in, ठीक है ना, you have to reason with the client ना, you have to go and challenge him. आप उसको रीजंस देंगे कि भाई मैं समझता हूँ कि ये तो आपके सही है, these looks reasonable but this one doesn't look reasonable, और इसकी मेरी तो ये बेसिस है, आपकी क्या बेसिस है, what are your basis? तो आपको कहा जा रहा है कि आप चैलेंज करें। आप जब चैलेंज करेंगे तो वो आपको कोई ना कोई रीजन देगा, maybe that reasonable and acceptable to you, or maybe you didn't thought of it. ऐसा भी हो सकता है कि आप कहेंगे हाँ ये भी सही तो कह रहा है, ये भी हो सकता है। तो you are reached a common ground, जिसे कहते हैं ना, एक common ground पे you will come at the common ground, और आप उसको करेक्ट कर लें, या तो वो एडजस्टमेंट कर लेगा या फिर आप समझेंगे कि मैं इस चीज को अपने पास डॉक्यूमेंट कर सकता हूँ कि यस दिस लुक्स रीजनेबल और इसके ये रीजन हो सकता है। क्योंकि ये देखें, एस्टिमेशन एक ऐसा प्रोसेस है जिसमें हर दफा डिफरेंट रिजल्ट आ सकता है और हर दफा डिफरेंट प्रोसेस अडॉप्ट किया जा सकता है, क्योंकि एस्टिमेशन है। इस साल मैंने इस तरीके से किया, अगले साल मैं समझता हूँ कि ये थोड़ा सा इसमें चेंजेस कर दी, ये डिफरेंट हो गया, तो इट कैन चेंज नेक्स्ट ईयर, कोई इसमें मसला नहीं है कि चेंज ना हो, ठीक है।
So in what circumstances should we consider that we should use
क्या
our
चीज़?
expert? In
Sorry.
what circumstances we should consider that we should use our expert?
नहीं देखें, स्टैंडर्ड्स में तो ये बात बहुत अब क्लियरली है कि एनी एरिया जिसमें ऑडिटर की एक्सपर्टीज नहीं है, एज एन ऑडिटर आप अकाउंटिंग एक्सपर्ट हैं, ठीक है, ये तो आपको पता है कि आप अकाउंटिंग एक्सपर्ट हैं, तो इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि अदर देन अकाउंटिंग रिलेटेड मैटर, कोई भी मैटर है उसके लिए आप एक्सपर्ट पे जा सकते हैं। लीगल मैटर है, उसका रिजल्ट क्या आएगा, कोर्ट में चल रहा है, क्या होगा केस के ऊपर, क्लाइंट के लॉयर ने एक ओपिनियन दे दिया, आप उसको असेस करें, आप उसको देखेंगे कि मैनेजमेंट का व्यू क्या है इसके ऊपर, ये कंटीजेंसी के ऊपर लॉयर का क्या व्यू है। अगर वो सिंपलिस्टिकली समझ में आ रहा है, स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड है, डिफरेंट, लेकिन आपको लगता है नहीं इसकी इम्प्लीकेशन बहुत बड़ी हो सकती है, ये इसमें काफ़ी सारी सब्जेक्टिविटीज इन्वॉल्व हैं, कॉम्प्लेक्सिटीज इन्वॉल्व हैं, देन यू गो टू योर एक्सपर्ट, आप अपना लॉयर अपॉइंट करें, आप अपने लॉयर के थ्रू जाएं, मतलब आपको जहां पर आपकी एक्सपर्टीज नहीं है वहां आप ऑडिटर का एक्सपर्ट अपॉइंट कर सकते हैं, ठीक है ना। अब वो आपकी जजमेंट के ऊपर है कि आपको कितनी कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी नजर आ रही है उस एस्टिमेशन के अंदर। इफ यू थिंक इतनी कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी है कि ये स्ट्रेट नहीं है, ठीक है ना, उसमें मैनेजमेंट जजमेंट ज्यादा इन्वॉल्व हो रही है और इसकी इम्प्लीकेशन भी बड़ी हो सकती है, देन यू डेफिनेटली गो टू द इंडिपेंडेंट एक्सपर्ट, you go and appoint your independent expert and get your estimation comfort from him। जी कुछ क्या कह रहे हैं?
ऑडिटर की अंडरस्टैंडिंग में डिफरेंस है, मैनेजमेंट हैज मेड एन एस्टिमेट and auditor has a reservation on that estimate। So management can claim that we are running the business, we know better than you what should be the number, but still the auditor is not satisfied with that number। So will we call it a misstatement, or if it is a misstatement after all, then what is the actual amount of misstatement which we can refer that yes, this is the number or this is the amount of misstatement?
Look, if you think that management is correct, then why would you argue with them? The first question is that if you think that management is making an estimate which is correct, because
There is a
I'm
difference,
disagreeing
there is
with
a
it. No?
difference.
Yeah, there's a difference of opinion between auditor and the management. And auditor thinks that, no, I think this is the way it should be calculated, or this is the right estimate. This is the, you're doing it wrong. So there's a disagreement, clear disagreement. Then you have to go to the next step. There's a disagreement. You have to assess whether it is material or not, and then you have to give an impact on either audit report or where else you want to report it. It's simple that way. It has nothing to do with the estimation. It's simple. It's a disagreement between you and me.
But the quantification of disagreement, I'm talking
Then
about the
obviously I have to make that estimation. I have to arrive in order to assess how much it is material or not. In order to make that judgment, I have to do some kind of a calculation. But that calculation
will
won't
that
be that
calculation be
accurate.
a concrete working of
No,
of
no,
what?
that's what I'm saying. That calculation won't be that accurate, but it will help me to give an idea whether I can qualify, I can give an adverse, I can give a disclaimer, or I can simply leave it and put it in unaudited misstatements in the representation. What different levels of I can go for it.
But most of the time, will it be an emphasis?
No, emphasis is not on
Because this is a
misstatement.
significant judgment.
No. Emphasis is never given on misstatements. Either it's qualification you give or you leave it. Material or not material. Emphasis is given in areas where you want users' attention. So you don't want user attention over a misstatement. It's a misstatement. So that's different. User attention where you want to, there you give a emphasis of matter. Emphasis of matter is not one in that change. If you have a misstatement, then you have to decide whether it is material enough to have a qualification on the audit report, or it's not that material. I can get a representation letter, I can get other comforts, so I can leave it or not, maybe. Yeah.
Just wanted to add that he also said that the client normally argues that you don't have the business understanding. So normally being auditors, we also involve the experts who has the business understanding. Like in the case of insurance companies, we involve actuary. So they have the business understanding. Because at one side, they are engaged as an audit expert.
Yeah, definitely.
From
Client
our
cannot
point-
say that you don't have an understanding. If client is coming that I have a better business understanding. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. 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 We need to get confidence at our level only, as an auditor, that we think that this is incorrect, this is incorrect. So we may need to appoint experts for it. We need to make our own grounds, that whatever we are saying, because sometimes this happens that client disagrees, you qualify their report, they go to the regulators and say that the auditor has done something wrong against you. But then what would you save you? If you have done a proper documentation, if you have involved your expert also, then you can justify, look, we are doing this. Okay, anything? Koi Zoom pe question? Any online question?
There are 2 online questions, but I think that has already been answered.
Okay.
May we check by ourselves estimate or hire expert necessary like actuary? We have already
वो हमने
answered
actuary
that.
का बता दिया था.
This appointment for independent actuaries and other experts would increase the audit cost. How to avoid this?
Cost के जवाब मैं यहाँ कैसे दूँ? Obviously, जब हम when we are appointing our own expert, it will entail a cost. Obviously, we should negotiate with our client that whatever there is needed, like we charge out of pocket expense. We charge. So we should be clear with our clients, audit clients, like what we do. Like we are already cleared our clients that wherever we will use an external expert, the area of other than accounting expertise, I have to hire an expert, and for that I will charge you separately. And this has to be communicated to the client, and this is how we do it. This is how everyone should do it, because whatever additional cost is incurred, that is not part of the audit fee and you need to charge to the client. Obviously, you need to negotiate with them and make them understand that, it's for their better, their estimate would become more reliable. You will think that, okay, an independent person has also looked at it with the same level of scrutiny which they are looking at it. So I think we have to show them that it's a value addition kind of an exercise, that you are getting another view from it. Because like for example, although in actual cases the cost is not that higher, but in cases of insurance, life insurance companies, where a lot of estimation is based on actuarial assumptions and actuarial way of calculations, there, yes, actual work is pretty much at a higher level, and they do charge. And you need to talk to your client upfront that, this cost I will pass it on to you. We cannot avoid that. Either they will bear it or either we. There's no other. Okay, no more questions. Okay, then thank you for this. And now I think we have some case studies with us, if time permits. Okay, we have two case studies basically. Let's start with the first one and then we'll see what is the time availability. Yasin will run through the question, and I think we have a handout. We have handouts. Yeah, we can distribute the handouts to you. You have a read through it. Give a 10-15 minutes to go through the case scenarios, and then we'll ask you about the solutions. इधर ही करना है. Run through run through.
Before we start, just a quick question: that how many of you see that
Off
code of ethics is like an just a topic for examinations, and it has nothing to do with the practical audit? Anyone of you?
कैसे करना है?
So it seems that all agree with me and understand that it has to do with the practical issues as well, and it has nothing to do with only theory. So we will try to quickly cover the first scenario, and it relates to Hub Airlines. Hub Airline is a large unlisted business. Its head office is based in Islamabad, but it also has operations in Colombo and Abu Dhabi. You are Rustam Rais, an audit senior working for Sultan & Sultan, a firm of chartered accountants. Hub Airlines has approached Sultan & Sultan to provide audit services for the year ending 30 June 2022. So by the very first paragraph, आपने देख लिया हो कि ये फर्स्ट ईयर ऑडिट है. हमें एक ऑडिट क्लाइंट ने अप्रोच किया और अब हम यहाँ पर कोड ऑफ एथिक्स के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से रिस्क इवेल्युएट करेंगे एट द टाइम ऑफ जो ऑन बोर्डिंग हम फेस करते हैं. Nasir Ahmed, a partner in your firm, has left your note. We need to complete all of the acceptance procedures for Hub Airlines to ensure that we are happy to take them. Hub Airlines chief executive is a close family friend of the managing partner, and he is very keen for us to accept this engagement. So in this paragraph, there is clearly a threat, and any one of you can just simply raise the hand and identify. We need to complete all of the acceptance procedures for Hub Airlines to ensure that we are happy to take them on as a client. Hub Airlines chief executive is a close family friend of the managing partner, and is very keen for us to accept this engagement. So chief executive is a close family friend of the managing partner. Please could you review the attached information, including management accounts for the 6 months to 31st December 2021 and financial statement for the years ended 30 June 2020 and 2021 Appendix 1, and also an email from the previous auditor. So you have to just quickly go through the information in the appendix 1 and appendix 2, and as you already have gone through the information of how to perform the analytical procedures and how to assess the risk at the planning stage. So simply just go through the information and then we will shortly discuss it. Using this information, please prepare a briefing note to support our acceptance decisions. Also prepare a summary of facts that we should consider in our acceptance decision. Further information you might need an initial conclusion on whether we should accept the audit. Ensure you include any ethical considerations within the briefing note. So in appendix 1, we have been provided with statement of financial positions consisting of management accounts latest and audited accounts for last 2 years. Just go through the information and let us know what comes to your mind. Due to lack of time, we would be having a quick discussion. So I will encourage participation from your side. You just need to raise your hand and provide the responses. Anything with reference to the first, in which it was mentioned that the chief executive officer is a close family friend of the managing partner. So that's related to code of ethics. And then you have been given financial information as well. And you have been and for the participants who have joined us on Zoom, they have also been provided the questions. In appendix 2, there is an email addressed to the current auditors by the predecessor auditor. Further to your request for information regarding our provision of audit services to Hub Airlines for the 3 years ended 2021, we have the following statements. We have been given permission by Hub Airlines to correspond with you. We will not be providing you with access to our audit files. We will not be providing you with access to our audit files. We encountered some areas of difficulty in our audits, especially significant incorrect financial reporting treatments, which were corrected by the management. However, all audit opinions were issued unmodified. We have unpaid audit fees from 30 June 2021 audit of rupees 56 million. आई कैप आए तो पेपर तो देना पड़ेगा. रिमेंबर, ये जो है इनिशियल इंफॉर्मेशन है, तो आपने सिर्फ जो है वो रिस्क हाईलाइट करने या कंसर्न्स हाईलाइट करने, तो प्रोसीजर्स वगैरह कुछ भी नहीं. Can we start discussion? Any volunteer?
सर एक्सेप्टेंस के लिए तो ये है कि इसमें थ्रेड का आ सकता है हमारे पास ना आगे ऑप्शन, क्योंकि वो उनके जब इन्होंने ये मेंशन किया है कि क्लोज रिलेटिव्स हैं, तो उसमें हमें आगे थ्रेड्स के भी वो चांस हो सकते हैं जो हमने कोड ऑफ एथिक्स में पढ़ा था.
वो क्या पढ़ा था आपने? कौन सी थ्रेड? थ्रेड ही तो बतानी.
कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट.
Right, familiarity threat. Anyone else?
ये इंडिपेंडेंस थ्रेट हो जाएगा और बिकॉज ऑफ द कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट।
कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट तो नहीं है, क्योंकि फर्स्ट ईयर क्लाइंट है, हमने कोई इसको और कोई सर्विसेज दी नहीं है,
फैमिली फ्रेंडशिप की वजह से सीईओ के साथ।
तो फैमिलियरिटी थ्रेट होगा ना उसके लिए। Okay, due to lack of time, we will just wrap up this case study and I will discuss the answer with you. First of all, पहले इसको कोड ऑफ एथिक्स के पार्ट से देख लेते हैं, ठीक है। तो सबसे पहले तो अगर कोई इस तरह की इंडस्ट्रीज होती हैं जिनका हम ऑडिट करते हैं, लाइक इंश्योरेंस, बैंकिंग, तो उसके लिए हमें अपनी फर्म में देखना होता है कि डू वी हैव द कॉम्पिटेंसी टू परफॉर्म द एंगेजमेंट फॉर देम। तो एक तो हमें ये देखना हो कि हम क्या हमारे पास स्टाफ है उस स्किल सेट का। सेकेंडली, जो आप लोगों ने राइटली आइडेंटिफाई किया कि फैमिली थ्रेट है, क्योंकि मैनेजिंग पार्टनर जो है क्लोज फैमिली फ्रेंड है चीफ एग्जीक्यूटिव ऑफिसर के। और थर्डली, आई होप आप लोगों ने आइडेंटिफाई कर लिया था, जो लॉन्ग आउटस्टैंडिंग जो फी है लास्ट ईयर ऑडिट की, वो ऑलमोस्ट 8 मंथ्स पास भी हो चुकी है। तो उसका रीज़न, और जो आपके पास ईमेल आई है उसमें इंफॉर्मेशन अवेलेबल थी, जिस तरह प्रेडेसर ऑडिटर हमसे करस्पॉन्ड कर रहा था, उससे ऐसा लगता है कि हमें ये असेस करने की ज़रूरत है क्या कन्फ्लिक्ट था जिसकी वजह से फ़ी जो अभी तक आउटस्टैंडिंग है पे नहीं की गई। तो ये कोड ऑफ एथिक्स के पार्ट पे ये आंसर था। अब जो आपने फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट पे जो एनालिटिकल रिव्यू किया और उसमें जो एनालिसिस किया हुआ, तो आपको एज पर एज अ 570 जो गोइंग कंसर्न है, तो उसमें जो है हमें प्लानिंग स्टेज पे भी जो है वो गोइंग कंसर्न के प्रोसीजर्स परफॉर्म करने होते हैं, और हमें देखना होता है, असेस करना होता है कि क्या कोई इवेंट्स और कंडीशंस हैं that cast significant doubt on the entity's ability to continue as a going concern। तो उसमें अगर आप कोई सिंपली सिर्फ हैंड रेस कर दिया, कोई ऐसा बंदा था जिसने इसमें आइडेंटिफाई किया होगा एक इवेंट और कंडीशन था नेट करंट लायबिलिटी का।
अच्छा सर, सर इसमें इशू है आइजा 510 का, जो हमारा ओपनिंग बैलेंस पे हम एविडेंस हासिल करते हैं ना, क्योंकि सर ये बेसिकली सुल्तान एंड सुल्तान ट्रस्ट जो है ना, ये बेसिकली इनका फर्स्ट ईयर है और हमें ओपनिंग बैलेंसेस पे इस पे एविडेंस देने पड़ेंगे। और अगर वो नहीं होते, क्योंकि यहाँ पर मेंशन हुआ हुआ है कि इन्होंने हमें एक्सेस टू फाइल नहीं दिया ऑडिट वर्किंग पेपर्स प्रीडेसेसर ऑडिटर ने, तो सर उसमें मेंशन है आइजा में कि इसमें हम रिपोर्टिंग इम्प्लीकेशन में अगर अदर फर्दर ऑडिट प्रोसीजर से अगर नहीं हो सका, हमसे एविडेंस हासिल नहीं हो सके, तो हम इस पे अपनी स्कोप लिमिटेशन भी दे सकते हैं।
यस, राइटली आइडेंटिफाइड, आई वाज कमिंग टू इट आफ्टर गोइंग कंसर्न इशू। अभी इसको क्योंकि इन्होंने आंसर किया तो उसको कंप्लीट कर लेते हैं। He has rightly identified that as per ISA 510, we have to verify the opening balances. So, as mentioned in the email, the predecessor auditor has denied to provide the review of opening balances. So, in this case, as per standard, you have to evaluate whether you can perform the procedures at your own to verify the opening balances. Like in the case of cash and bank balances, you can simply send the bank confirmations for the last year as well. But in some cases, you need there would be a scope limitation on your part to perform procedures to verify the opening balances. So definitely we will have to evaluate whether we would be in a position to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence on opening balances. With reference to going concern, we have identified an event and conditions that is a net current liability, and we have to assess whether it's a whether this event or condition at its own is substantial. And then in this case, even if you look at the last year, so you will find that in the last year as well, there would be a net current liability position as well. So you need a complete set of financial statements to review whether it has, whether how it was dealt, whether it was disclosed or not, whether there were plans to mitigate this issue. Further, if you look at the email, the auditor has identified that there were difficulty in prior audits, and there were significant financial reporting treatments that were performed incorrectly by the management. However, these were corrected by the management upon the request of the auditor, but you need to reassess whether the management has the skill set, the financial reporting skills, or whether the error was intentional. So here comes the ISA 240 as well. Remember, we are not the investigators. We just need to assess the risks of, we just need to assess fraud risk and then need to respond it appropriately. Anything else? Yes.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम। मैनेजमेंट अकाउंट्स को अगर हम कंपेयर करते हैं तो उसमें जो ट्रेड एंड अदर पेबल्स और कॉस्ट ऑफ सेल्स है उनकी कोरिलेशन जो है वो थोड़ी यूजुअल है। ट्रेड एंड अदर पेबल्स इंक्रीज हो रहे हैं जबकि कॉस्ट ऑफ सेल्स जो है वो डिक्रीज हो रहे हैं।
ठीक है, इसमें वही है ना कि हमारे पास तो सिर्फ एक कंप्लीट फेस नहीं है, एक फेस है, तो वी नीड मोर इन्फॉर्मेशन जिसके बाद हम ये रियलाइज कर सकते हैं, एनालाइज कर सकते हैं कि इसमें इश्यू है। अपेरेंटली जो एफएस के अंदर जो आपको ऑन द फेस सिर्फ फेस ऑफ फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट को देख के लग रहे हैं ना, तो वो आप मुझे उनमें से एक मिसिंग है जो अभी तक किसी ने नहीं बताया। और ये नॉर्मली होता है जब भी ऑडिटर चेंज होता है, तो जो करंट ईयर में नया ऑडिटर आ रहा होता है उसको एक चेंज इन अकाउंटिंग पॉलिसी देखने को मिलता है। तो ये भी एक चीज़ है जो आपको जो है ना स्केप्टिकल होकर देखना चाहिए कि ऐसा क्यों होता है, जब ऑडिटर चेंज होता है तो अकाउंटिंग पॉलिसी भी चेंज हो रही होती है। अगर आप देखें तो इनके रिजल्ट्स में प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी जो है ना वो डिक्लाइन हो रही है, और नॉर्मली इस तरह की फिर फैंसिंग अकाउंटिंग की जाती है जिसमें अगर प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी डिक्लाइन होती है तो आप चेंज इन अकाउंटिंग पॉलिसी करके अपने रिजल्ट्स को इम्प्रूव करने के लिए, बैलेंस शीट को विंडो ड्रेस करने के लिए इस तरह की पॉलिसीज चेंज करते हैं। अगर आप देखें तो इन्होंने फिर रीवैल्यूएशन सरप्लस बुक किया है, अपने एसेट्स की जो पॉलिसी है उसको चेंज किया फ्रॉम कॉस्ट मॉडल टू रीवैल्यूएशन। तो ये भी एक चीज थी जो मैनेजमेंट अकाउंट्स को देख के लग रही थी कि ये हमें इसको भी असेस करना पड़ेगा।
अच्छा,
Anything else?
एक इसमें और मैंने नोट किया था, रिटेन अर्निंग्स जो है वो 6 मंथ्स की इतनी है जितनी लास्ट ईयर की रिटेन अर्निंग्स पूरे होल 12 मंथ्स की। क्या ये आपके उसमें भी मौजूद है?
देखिए रिटेन अर्निंग्स तो फिर आप ये देखें ना कि इसके अंदर ये फिर हमें फर्दर इंफॉर्मेशन से लेनी पड़ेगी। रिटेन अर्निंग्स में इसकी जब हम मूवमेंट बनाएंगे ओपनिंग रिटेन अर्निंग से जो मैनेजमेंट अकाउंट्स की क्लोजिंग रिटेन अर्निंग है उसमें हम डालेंगे प्रॉफिट फॉर द ईयर। तो ये अगर ये इस तरीके से अगर ये कॉर्पोरेट नहीं होती, नंबर वो नहीं बनता, तो हमें फर्दर इंफॉर्मेशन रिक्वायर्ड होगी इसकी।
ठीक।
दैट्स ऑल फॉर टुडे। मैं आपसे रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा, एक और सिनारियो था वो बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग सिनारियो है, तो क्योंकि हमारे पास टाइम नहीं है ड्यू टू लैक ऑफ टाइम, आई वुड रिक्वेस्ट ऑल ऑफ यू टू कंप्लीट दैट सिनारियो। So fortunately we have get additional 10 minutes, so we will simply try to wrap up second scenario as well. उसमें ये हुआ कि आप उसको सेकंड सिनारियो देखें, और जैसे एक पेपर में देखते हैं ना, आप देखें आपको पहले इन्फॉर्मेशन पे क्या क्लिक होता है। जो लोगों को जल्दी जल्दी क्लिक होता है वो सिर्फ एक पॉइंट लिखें, सिंपली जैसे आपको लग गया कि यार गोइंग कंसर्न आपने आइजा 570 लिख लिया, ठीक है ना। इस तरह आपकी देखें रिस्क असेसमेंट की स्किल तेज होगी, आप बताएं, फिर वो हम जो है वो थोड़ा डिस्कस कर लेंगे जितना हमारे पास टाइम है। You are Mariam Muja and work as an audit senior for Munir and Company, an audit firm based in Lahore. You have recently been assigned to an audit of a long established client. Previously हमने देखा था कि that was a first year audit. A past textile, the audit partner Munir Akram has returned from a preliminary planning meeting with AT's chief executive officer and finance director, and has asked you to begin the audit planning for the year ended 31st March 2022. The partner has provided you with some background information in Appendix 1 and notes from the meeting in Appendix 2. along with some financial information in Appendix 3 and Appendix 4. Requirements. Review the information provided in appendices and perform analytical procedures to identify the audit risks for the audit of 80 for the year ended 30 May 2022. For the audit risks identified, outline any additional information required to have a better understanding of the risk. Remember, we are at planning stage. We simply just have to analyze the information and identify risks or material misstatement and anything else or any other information that we need to complete our risk assessment stage. Discuss the implications of the above transaction on the completion of the audit. Also recommend the action in this regard which the firm should take. Here in this requirement, the question is referring to a case which is mentioned in Appendix 4, which relates to the undocumented receipts which have been identified in the bank statement. Requirement C, explain any professional ethical issues for Munir and Company arising from the email of the finance director included in Appendix 5. Here's the background information about the entity and its operation, which we normally document in the entity and its environment. All companies within the textile industries have suffered from an increase in the cost of raw materials, inflationary pressures, depreciation of the rupee, and general downturn in the economy. ये वो सारी चीजें जो हमें पता है. AT has a bank covenant attached to its borrowing that requires it to maintain gearing at or below 40%. AT has following divisions: silk division manufactures silk which is sold to fashion companies. Home textile division makes fabrics used for products such as rugs and blankets. Home textile makes sales to the domestic as well as foreign markets. Now here we have two revenue. Here we can say we have two revenue streams, one from the local sales and one from the international market. So clearly you can link the depreciation in the Pak rupee with the for foreign sales. Industry division manufactures industrial fabric which is sold to manufacture of a variety of products. Sportswear division manufactures sporting apparel. So here is the notes of meeting with the CEO and finance director of Abbas Textiles. Before we go to the notes of the meeting, I would request you simply just go to the financial information so that you can find some plausible relationships when you perform the analysis on the financial information and when you compare it with the non-financial information. So as mentioned earlier, there are 4 segments: silk, home textile, industry, and sportswear. So here you can see that the revenue for the current year has increased as compared to the last year. So you just need to identify what are the factors or what is the information behind it, how the revenue was increased. So just simply compare revenue of current year with the last year. Then we have been provided with the gross profit. So as part of analytical procedures, you can simply perform the calculate the gross profit margins and simple ratios of revenue. Then you have been provided with the, since it's a manufacturing concern, so obviously the important, after revenue, the second most important item would be the PP. So they have provided information regarding the PP and it has been disclosed segment wise. As mentioned earlier, that there was a bank covenant related to gearing ratio. So you have been provided with the information on long-term loan and total liquidity. So you can calculate gearing for both current year as well and prior year as well. Now, if you go back to the minutes of the meeting, they acknowledge the general economy has been challenging, but the results of AT compare favorably to last year. As we have seen in the financial information, that revenue was improved as compared to last year. And if you work out the percentages, it would form around 10% or so. So they're just saying that they are pleased with the increase in revenue by 10%, and they have managed to control costs so that the gross profit has held up well to market pressures. Now, if you see, he has also made the comment that the gross profit has held up well to market pressures. So even if you calculate the gross profit margin at total level as for current year and last year as well, it remains same. So all the information about the client and its industry, that there are inflationary pressures and the Pak rupee has depreciated and cost of production has gone. So still they are managed to maintain the gross profit margin level. In February 2022, AT launched its first product aimed at sportswear market after successfully developing a new type of fabric. While the product has received good publicity, especially in the sporting press, sales to retailers have been slower than expected. In April 2022, AT agreed terms with the major retailers that AT would fund the in-store marketing activities and allow the retailers to return any unsold products within 3 months. This is the first time AT has entered into such arrangement. So there are almost, I think, 2 risks in this paragraph. So you have to critically evaluate it. As you have seen in the financial information, there was no sales or gross profit in the last year. So sportswear is the stream that they have launched this year. They have launched a new product and they were finding it difficult to market it. So they have provided incentives to the retailers. Remember that revenue, as per ISA 240, there's a presumed risk of fraudulent revenue recognition. So normally we mark significant risk in revenue. And at what assertion? It normally relates to occurrence and cutoff. The retailers reacted favorably to the arrangement, and the sales volume increased significantly in April and May. The production of the sportswear has been outsourced to another company, as this enabled AT to produce the goods without any additional capital outlay. Still, due to lack of time, I would just simply discuss the issues. So if you look at the first paragraph where it was mentioned that the revenue was increased by 10%. So if you analyze the financial information, if you exclude the sportswear, revenue has declined by 9%. So if you compare like to like, then you will find that if we isolate the productions or the gains or the revenue from the sportswear, there would be a decline of 9% of total revenue. Similarly, if you see the gross profit margin levels, sportswear is the product in which they have a huge margin. So that's the reason why it's year on year it remains the same, and they are mentioning that they were able to sustain all the pressures of the economy, and they were able to show the gross profit margin of 24%. Even in fact of sportswear, where they have typically entered into an arrangement in which if the retailer is not able to sell the products within 3 months, they would they have option to return it to the client. So in this case, you would be able to pick the risk of IFRS 15 revenue recognition, right? And in April 2022, these terms were made. So we need further information. We need contracts agreement to understand the arrangement. And in the case of all sales made to the retailers during the month of April and May, we need to ensure that whether the revenue is overstated or not, since they might not be classified, they might not entertain the criteria of IFRS 15 to book revenue. Now moving forward to home textile division. Home textile division has been impacted by delivery issues to foreign customers. Items dispatched since March 2022 have frequently taken over 3 weeks to reach foreign customers. So here again, there's a risk of revenue recognition. So you need to account for this as well. Say in the last month or the last fortnight, last 2 weeks, if the dispatches if the customer has not received the delivery, then you have to ascertain whether whether there's a reason to book revenue or not. So here is also there's a risk of overstatement of revenue. A significant customer industry division is Mehdi Manufacturing. Unfortunately, AT was unable to source a material used in the manufacturing of specific fabric for Mehdi Manufacturing. AT has been working to find an alternative supply, but this is likely to be a much higher price, especially if the components are sourced from overseas. Without the supply of the component, AT will not be able to fulfill its agreement with Mehdi Manufacturing, which could result in penalty payments. So as per IS 37, if you remember the definition of onerous contract, so you need to evaluate whether the cost of fulfilling the contract simply exceeds the economic benefits arising from it. The business of another key client in industry division, Gujarat Furniture, was lost when the contract went out to tender. Gujarat Furniture had historically represented approximately 27% of industry division's business and had been more profitable than other contracts. The director was optimistic about a new contract signed with Pazoo Motors for supplying fabric for car seats. The initial manufacturing was challenging, but they were confident that this contract would fully recover the loss of Gujarat Furniture. So if you simply corroborate your results of the financial analysis with the non-financial information and the minutes of the meeting, you will find the plausible relationships and you will be better able to identify the risks of material misstatement in the audit. Yeah, after the end of this session, you will be provided with the results and answers of this case studies. Thank you. Thank you very much.